Getting hype when I aim up, elevating that game up, stepping up to the competition. Only first place, and that's how I'm living. I'm with it till they digging up my grave, eating all the things up on my plate. Game face when I step up into place. I was born and when I watched me elevate. I was born and when I watched me elevate. All in when I show up, whole place about to blow up. Superior to that competition. I'm in first place, yeah, that's how I'm living. I'm with it till they digging up my grave, eating all the things up on my plate. Game face when I step up into place. I was born and when I watched me elevate. Watch me elevate. I was born and when I watch me elevate. I was born and when I watch me elevate. Getting hype when I aim up, elevating that game up, stepping up to the competition. Only first place, and that's how I'm living. I'm with it till they digging up my grave, eating all the things up on my plate. Game face when I step up into place. I was born and when I watched me elevate. Watch me elevate. I was born and when I watch me elevate. I was born and when I watch me elevate. Watch me elevate. Yeah. All in when I show up, whole place about to blow up. Superior to that competition. I'm in first place, yeah, that's how I'm living. I'm with it till they digging up my grave, eating all the things up on my plate. Game face when I step up into place. I was born and when I watched me elevate. I was born and when I watched me.
Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back to the only show on the internet that Retro Blasting was so offended by that they left a shitty comment in our chats. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to The Brand Show. My name is Billy Nichols. I am The Brand. You can call me Quicksilver. You can call me The Brand. Whatever you do, you just don't call me late to lunch. I am your Generalissimo and the Larry Bird of action figure collecting.
And my name is Curtis Small, a.k.a. Papa Smallz, the best site on the internet because I left for milk and cigarettes. And I came back for your ass.
Now,
How y'all doing?
Dad, you came back with milk and cigarettes. Where are the milk and cigarettes?
They're in the fridge, and I smoked all of them on the way back.
Skill issue.
God damn it. Well, welcome back to the show, everyone. It is so good to be back. First and foremost, I need to apologize. This show was supposed to premiere back in April. We had some technical difficulties. We had planned on being back in the middle of April. A lot of things came up, a lot of good news. For those of you new here, there was some amazing news that kind of came about in the meantime. And, you know, for me, it was really good to get that news and to be able to digest and, you know, kind of get myself to exactly where I am. So pardon me for a second while I give you 9 seconds of stage complete from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Because your boy is in remission! 6 months ahead of schedule. So, you know, this is what was going on. I'm so sorry. There were some concerns from my doctors and some MRIs and some so forth that needed to happen. And, well, we found out that I was far, far, far ahead of schedule. And, yeah, so that's why we had to push back, because doctor's appointments took precedence. So I do apologize for that. Now, today is also a very special day, Smallz, is it not?
It is. I run it back to me. There's a lot going on behind the scenes for all of us. What's going on?
Well, first of all, it's Sami Zayn's birthday, so.
Ooh, it's also my cousin's birthday.
Right on. Well, happy birthday to Sami Zayn and Smallz' cousin. If you're a first-time viewer here, enjoy. Tonight is the 1-year anniversary of The Brand Show. We premiered exactly 365 days ago today with our good friend, constant collaborator, and fellow colon cancer survivor, Kevin Munroe. So tonight, it's kind of cathartic. We decided to move away from Tuesdays. Tuesday was too early in the week. We wanted to give you guys something to break away from Hump Day. We also wanted to pull you all away from AEW Dynamite. So it's really good to be back on the air, but it's also good to be here Wednesday because, you know, tomorrow night you get to parlay into watching Hey Archer live, Mazza Media's live, you know, which is good. So you got 2 great shows to watch on a Thursday night. You got us now. We are the Wednesday Night Titans. We are The Brand Show. But anyway, let's get right into it. Tonight's episode is brought to you by CollectorCon 2023 in Cleveland, Ohio. Emanating from the Neo Sports Plant right outside of Cleveland on August 19th. Make sure to search CollectorCon 23 on Facebook for event details, because the link was way too long. I didn't want to give it to you guys and give it to you in chat. Also, just to let you guys know, for those of you who subscribe, there's some new functionality and features for subscribers here for The Brand Show. And we have something new that we want to announce for our subscribers, right? Should we tell them now or should we make them wait?
Give them a hint.
Hold on. Let me give him some Jeopardy music and I'll think about it for a second here. I got 25 seconds to think about this. Guys, I need to know, do I need to tell you now or do we wait till the end of the show?
Someone give an answer because he will use all 25 seconds.
All right. Well, now you can hear Smallz better. Let me give him a little bit more audio, too, on my end so you can hear him better. But Booty said we got to give it to him now. Do we give it to him now?
Yeah, might as well.
All right. Well, just so you guys know.
Perfect.
We have some very exciting news. So, for those of you who are subscribers here, take a shot on our Jesus Christ, I can't even talk today. Those of you who are subscribers here, say that 5 times fast, on our Twitch channel, we have a new functionality subscriber-only chat on our new Discord channel. Smallz, drop that Discord channel in the chat. We also have a bonus for the brand show and a bunch of nerds community, which is going to be very exciting, and that is going to be a monthly movie night. And I am very excited to announce that our first movie night is going to be Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2007, and we are going to be once again joined by consistent collaborator Kevin Munroe, and we're not just going to be screening any cut of the movie. There is a cut of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 07 that has never been publicly aired. It's in black and white. It's a very raw version, but it is the original Kevin Munroe cut of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
I was just going to say hashtag release the Munroe cut.
Yeah, so join our Discord. Link is in the chat. Thank you, Smallz. Hashtag release the Munroe cut. Also, hashtag don't ban snacks. F's in the chat for snacks if he's not here. There is a new icon for those of you subscribers. So now you can just press the F.
I'm sure he'll float in at some point.
Yes,
tonight.
and he will, I'm sure. But so that's our really exciting news. Make sure to get into the Discord channel. This first one, just so you guys know, is going to be a charitable event, so you do have to pay to show up for this one. A $20 minimum donation to the Colon Cancer Foundation will be required. We do have goals here. We want to help as many people as we can get over colon cancer or to not deal with colon cancer. Whatever. You don't have to sub for this one, but this is something where we do ask that you do make a donation to the Colon Cancer Foundation to be a part of this event. But a lot of stuff coming up, a lot of cool stuff. We covered most of it. We also have a show announcement. There's a new show coming to a bunch of nerds. You want to cover this? Yeah, you want to cover this one for me?
Is it the one that's already out or the one that's coming out in like X amount of days?
Well, there's one coming out here in 2 weeks. Nerd Fight.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so go ahead. Talk about it. I mean, Jay's not on the call, so we can't have him do it.
So obviously the right person for this would be Zero, our hero, Jay, our social media guru. Do y'all like arguing?
I love
Watch a nerd fight. I know you do.
Nerd Fight is premiering. I'm not sure if it's premiering on the new Kick channel or if it's premiering here on Twitch. July 21st. Jay, put all your shit in the chat. Go ahead.
Yeah, Jay, do your social stuff.
Yeah, and
I can hate my own shit. We know you could, but you're not verbally here.
For those of you who decided to skip going to the Drake show tonight and are hanging out at one of my favorite places, Cini's in Boston, shout out to you. I hope you get the Buffalo Arancini balls. They're amazing. Shout out to the...
Or if you're just too broke to afford $600 balcony seats.
I agree, but shout out to Cini's too. Love those guys. Congratulations on hitting 10K on Instagram. But let's get into housekeeping because...
Bruh.
We got a guest to get to.
Much. Yeah.
Well, we're gonna go through it real fast here, and we're gonna get you guys to our guest. Thank you for being here. First and foremost, we need to address the issues with Twitch. We have decided as a team, the A Bunch of Nerds media team, that we are going to premiere and air the rest of season 2 here on Twitch TV, just to keep things coherent and to keep things moving in the right direction. This channel will be moving to Kick as Kick gains features. We hope that you'll stay with us. Kick.com/abunchofnerds. You can go follow now. We're trying to hit affiliate status. 75 follows over there will help. Thank you, Smallz, for that in the chat. We already plugged the Discord movie nights. Now, we got 2 new shows that folks haven't seen since we... have been last on the air, so there have been a couple things that have changed. We launched a TikTok channel, but we have launched a second TikTok channel, so I'm going to let my main man go first and tell you all about Pressed.
Yeah, so obviously Billy is the toy guy. Jay is tabletop, pulp culture, kind of everything in between. I am music. So I am a vinyl nerd, self-diagnosed. And I will not be getting any sort of treatment because it is
Thoughts
an
and
addiction
prayers.
that is...
Thoughts and prayers.
Yeah, T's and P's in the chat for my vinyl addiction.
Perfect.
But it is on TikTok, it's on Instagram, it'll be on Shorts once we can get all that figured out. But if you like music history, you like diving into records, the history of a recording process, just what led up to an album, stuff like that, I'm your guy. Come hang. It'll be a good time.
TikTok.com/ABON Pressed, PRESSD. Instagram.com, same thing. YouTube.com/A Bunch of Nerds. You can find Unboxed, for those of you who don't already follow Unboxed, TikTok.com/unboxed. ABON Unboxed. UNBOXD. Man, I am nervous. I haven't seen you guys in so long, and I missed you so fucking much. You can also find me on Instagram at Billy Nichols Brand, at ABON Unboxed, UNBOXD. No E's, always a C. I don't know what that means. Whatever. So we got some new partners too. Some new stuff for you guys, for you collectors out there. And for those of you who just need caffeine throughout the day, we're really proud to announce that we do have a new partnership with W Energy. You can go to wenergy.gg and use code ABON and save yourself 10%. Thanks to us. And you can head over and see my friends at Figures Toy Company and save yourself.
What is it? Code ABON?
ABON. Code ABON. And then you can go over to figurestoyco.com/Billy Nichols Brand and save yourself 10% with the wonderful folks at Figures Toy Company. They make great figure photography accessories, a lot of fun retro-styled 5-point articulated figures, classic Batman, wrestlers who don't have figures, so shout-outs to them. And don't forget to check out our sponsors at PrepU. Use code THEBRAND at prepu.com. Save yourself 15%. So there's that. So today was also Prime Day.
Day
Buy
2.
anything? Did you buy? Well, yeah, day 2. I've been dealing with it for 2 days. And hey, if anybody from work is listening,
my fee is $175 an hour.
Exactly. Anyway, did you get anything from Prime Day? I didn't.
I did not, because I still cannot bring myself to pay for Amazon Prime, because I tell myself I don't use Amazon enough to justify it, but yet there was today, and I still said no.
My man.
Skill issue.
Anyway, well, that's good. I didn't spend any money through Amazon. If there's something you guys want, we do have affiliate links through Amazon. Please just slide my DMs. If there's something you want, I'll see if it's on sale, and I'll send you an affiliate link. Everything you guys do supports the channel, so thank you for that. Subscribe, tip, flip, buy Smallz a lap dance, whatever you want. Just watch the guys.
Hey, yo, what?
Just, goddamn it, watch the stream or I'm going to gaslight you. Anyway, moving on. I'm really excited. Also, one more thing I do need to announce, a little more piece before we get into weekly purchases. We're going to see you guys August 4th live at Fan Expo Boston. We're going to be in town for at least May. I'll be in town for Fan Expo Boston, probably with some of my friends from the figure community. Hopefully the guys from Nerd Affiliated will be joining me. Rebecca will be with me, a few other people. So if you see me at Fan Expo, make sure to stop and say hello. Let's take a selfie. Let's chat it up. Let's go toy hunt. Let's do something. All right, let's get right into weekly purchases. Why don't you lead us off tonight?
Where do I start? I think should be the main thing.
I picked like 3 things.
So I had 2 records come in today. I had 3 come in last week. I had 9 others come in the last month and a half. I have 14 records literally sitting on my shelf that I have to talk about, film, shoot, edit, and post. But I got Offspring, I got Juice WRLD, I got Limp Bizkit, I got Sleep Token, I got Good Charlotte, Mac Miller. I got a whole bunch of stuff.
Wow. So out of all those records, best one you bought. What's your favorite?
God, that's a loaded question. I'd have to say currently probably the Sleep Token record, just because I love that band, and I'm very excited to go see them in September, because that entire tour is already sold out. And if you don't know them, go listen to them. They are majestic is the only way I can really say it.
It's a good word. I like the word majestic, but since you got a few, I got a few too. It's been a long time. I think you guys see my weekly purchases on Unboxed all the time. I also want to tell you guys I have 2 really fun sponsored videos coming up. The new April O'Neil from NECA, sponsored by the good folks over at Southeastern Zone, Emporium of Retro and Interesting Collectibles, and a new partner. We're going to be unboxing the Mafex Scarlet Spider with our good friends from I Sell Toys for Fun. I know you guys are in the chat, so please leave your Instagram so our audience can find you guys. Make sure you go over and see them, and don't forget to tell them the brand sent you. But let's get right into weekly purchases. First things first, this was a fun purchase I found at the Emporium. I was there, and I was talking to Eric, and I turned around, and I found a figure of our guest tonight.
Oh.
I found a Tick vintage, which I plan to have Townsend sign at Rhode Island Comic Con in November. I'm very excited about that.
There you go.
So this one is going to be fun, but battle cries, chum. We need a battle cry. Spoon! I was out hunting this week, and I did find some of the retro turtle figures. I'll just show you one of them. I did find the retro card, and we did just unbox these on Unboxing. And yes, I'm going to Rhode Island Comic Con literally because the Ninja Turtles cast is going to be there, and I need to get some shit signed. But I got the storage shelves. I banged up Michelangelo's corner, so if anybody sees one at a Walmart or a Target, let me know. I need just Michelangelo. As you can tell, he's got a different color on the back. He's missing Chrome Dome up here. He doesn't have a weapons lot. So for those of you who are buying and you're thinking about buying vintage, look for these things. And if you're not sure, slide in my DMs. There's a ton of them, but the purchase of the week is right here, okay? And I'm just going to say this in a shout out to Playmates Toys. The new Mutant Mayhem figures are just absolutely amazing. At $10 price points, absolutely through the wall about these. This is Superfly from the new Mutant Mayhem movie. Can't wait to see that. Going to see that during Fan Expo. Anybody wants to go with me, slide in my DMs again. Love this figure. Really cool. Sorry, Rebecca. I spend a lot of money on toys. And last but not least, before I show you something that came in that's going to be a part of an upcoming Figure Friday, this is a shout out to my man Izzy. Izzy, if you're watching, I finally got my grail. I started collecting Storm Collectibles and Jada Toys Street Fighter figures while I was off air. I finally got Guile. So thank you, Spicy Collects on Instagram. My man, I appreciate you.
I'm sure your recent obsession with Street Fighter 6 had nothing to do with this.
No, my longtime obsession with Street Fighter just kind of started all over again and has been, just building.
I'm sure my obsession with Mortal Kombat is going to do the same thing when Mortal Kombat 1 comes out.
I can't wait for it to come out. Street Fighter 6 has been great, by the way, may I add. One last thing. I finally got this in the mail. As you can see, there's more retro card Rotocast Turtles behind me. I'm not going to open those tonight. I'm going to do an unboxing of those, so make sure you follow the channels. But I finally got this in the mail, and unfortunately, I can't afford an original. I've been looking for a Masters of the Universe Wondar for a long, long time, and Wondar is a very hard figure to come across. So for those of you in this chat over 40, you're so going to know who this is. Okay, so this is Wondar. This is a made-to-order Mattel Creations exclusive, and may I say, I can't wait for next week to fight everybody for that Muhammad Ali Ultimate Collection that's coming out for WWE through Mattel Creations. But this is Wondar. When I was a kid, you sent in 5 box tops from Wonder Bread. You got this dude. And I'm eventually going to have to show this to Seamus from Seamus, a.k.a. Esoteric, friend of the show, former guest. He'll probably be back too. But we were talking about this the other day, and I was saying to him, yeah, this is the Wonder Bread He-Man that you got. So total random name, Wondar. Come on, man. Like, you could have been like,
That's like, let me copy your Homer, but just change it up a little.
Yeah, I mean, and that's really what it is. I mean, I could sit here and make jokes about the submersible Titan all night and how much of a buffoon Stockton Rush is.
Skill issue.
But I'm not going to waste my time because we'd be here all night about everything that was wrong with that. Anyway, so it was a promotion with Wonder Bread, and I'm going to do a whole episode on mailaways. I don't have a bunch of the older ones. Super 7 also just announced one for San Diego Comic-Con, too. That's really cool. It's Super Shredder, the old Chef Boyardee mailaway that they did. The five things. I need to auto mod. You'd send away 5 box tops, and you would get a Shredder figure, like a Super Shredder figure from the original Ninja Turtles 2 movie, the 4-inch figure, and he was black with like purple. So they did a reaction version of that in a fucking soup can or a can of Chef Boyardee, and it's amazing. Like Super 7.
Those days of like box tops for kids and you'd send away for stuff.
Well, Pizza Hut brought back the summer reading program. Read 5 books, get a personal pan pizza.
Yep.
So kids, bring your kids.
That's what I grew up on.
That's what I'm saying. It's back. So, I think it's one of those things where I really want to see stuff like that come back, and I really want to see our childhoods come back because we got all sorts of fun stuff. And guys, it's about that time. We are going to bring in our guest Townsend Coleman, so we're going to go to our first break just to get Townsend in the room, say hello to him. I hope you guys are ready. By the way, check your channel points. For those of you who have brand bucks, we have a new function within there. You get priority access to ask a question. 1,000 brand bucks, and you're good to go. So check your channel points down the bottom of Twitch. If you don't follow the channel yet, make sure you follow the channel. We want you guys to be engaged. Listen, we have an amazing season ahead of you. You know, should I tell them one guest that we have this season? Should I?
You're from a bone.
All right. So guys, who likes Star Wars? I know you guys like Star Wars out there.
Okay, I've heard some good things.
Yeah, Star Wars is pretty cool, I guess.
Yeah.
But guys, we're bringing in Dominic Pace, who was in The Mandalorian. He was a bounty hunter in The Mandalorian. I'm not going to tell you which one. I'm going to have you tell me who he was. I know who he is, but do you? Okay, we know Rosa likes The Mandalorian. That's a very good thing. Okay, so guys, we're going to be bringing in Gecko himself, Dominic Pace. We also may have Chris Bartlett coming in, who was also in The Mandalorian. I don't know. But you're going to have to stay tuned, because right now we're going to bring in our guest, Townsend Coleman. It is The Brand Show. Generalissimo and the best dad on the internet. Stay tuned. We'll be back with you in 5 short minutes. Welcome back to the Brand Show. It took us a couple extra minutes because we started talking about the city and how the sewers have changed over the last 40 years. Guys, it is my distinct privilege, my distinct honor to bring you another member of the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cast. A man who literally voiced probably all of your childhoods. A man who has brought a kitchen utensil into our everyday vocabulary in a different vernacular than it ever could be. The Brand Show is proud to bring to you Michaelangelo himself, the Tick, Usagi Yojimbo, Electro Zapper, Muckman, so many different characters. We could sit here. Hell, I could even tell you he did additional voices for Dino Riders. That's how deep it goes for me. One of my personal heroes, my childhood heroes, ladies and gentlemen, Townsend Coleman.
Hey, how are you guys? Thanks for having me over to play. This is some fun.
Listen, anytime.
Electro Zapper, huh? That's one I don't remember.
I will, when we go to a break, I'll grab the figure and I'll show you. He's on the other side of the room, but I did bring your most giant form with me just so that way you could talk.
Look at me. Now I am buff. Look at me. Cut. I am cut. Look at that.
Well, he was one handsome turtle who had a very excellent pizza order. So, guys, here's how we're going to run it tonight. We're going to just have a conversation with Townsend. You know how the Brand Show goes. For those of you who are new here, we do not do a typical interview. We have a conversation as if we've known somebody for a while. We do coffee and just bullshit our way through 90 minutes. So, if you have questions, make sure you use your brand bucks, okay? 1,000 brand bucks will get you in. Those are free. As long as you watch the channel, you accrue brand bucks every few minutes. Smallz, do you know anything more about brand bucks that I don't know?
I mean, they can, if once we get more redemptions in there, they can kind of mess if we're doing game streams and whatnot. But as far as I know right now, it gives you priority for questions.
Absolutely. And guys, we'll be feeding the chat to Townsend as we go along. If you want to watch along, kill your volume, twitch.tv/The Brand Show Live. I can send you that, but let's just get right into it. There's so much to talk about and just to let you kind of get into it. So for those who may not know you are out of our audience, introduce yourself, please.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay, well, let me see. So I'm older now than I was before.
Yes. Yes, I'm Townsend Coleman, and I are a voice actor, and I've been doing this for a while. Born in New York City a whole bunch of years ago, and actually born to a pretty creative set of parents. And really, it was probably my dad that inspired me to kind of get into this whole line of work to begin with. He always wanted to be a DJ, an actor, wanted to be a network announcer for NBC. My parents met working at NBC in the early 50s at 30 Rock in New York. And so when I ended up becoming the comedy voice of NBC for 16 years, that was a bit of a full circle moment, I think, for my dad, because he never made it. And but was pretty darn proud of me when I did. So, I've been acting since I was, like in fourth grade and through middle school and high school and college and my young adult years, and grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. Was a DJ there on the radio for 10 years at different stations, spinning mostly rock and roll, actually some disco there in the mid 70s and 76 and 77. And that's where I discovered the voiceover thing. I was a production director at a couple of the radio stations I was working at. And so I was responsible for recording the local radio spots that ran on our air for the local clients. But I was also responsible for taking the tapes. Now you got to understand that this is back in the mid 70s to mid 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all these, excuse me, I'm sorry.
You're okay. Don't you worry.
Ooh. So we would get these tapes, quarter-inch tapes on, little 5-inch reels from ad agencies and production houses around the country. So part of my job was to take these tapes and transfer them over to what we call carts. And carts were what we had on the air. And it's just
style, right?
Yeah, well, it looks kind of like an 8-track
they look
cassette.
like them, but they're about this. Yeah, I went to school for broadcast. I remember them.
Yeah, and it generally you can put one song on there, or you can put one commercial on there, whatever. And we'd have a whole rack of carts, and you've got a schedule that tells you what to play when. So as as I, spent a number of years carting up these radio spots that were coming in from the national ad agencies and such, I was really listening to the guys and their delivery and stuff, and was just amazed by their voices. I've always been really probably more into following people's voices than on camera careers. And so I had my particular favorites back then and some idols of mine. And that's really what got me into being interested in doing voiceover. And I realized that there were ad agencies in Cleveland at the time that wanted to hire me, apart from the radio station, to record their, to voice their local radio ads and TV ads. And they were going to pay me cash money for this, apart from what I was making at the radio station. And I thought, well, now this is a handy little way of, packing my purse. And so I started doing more of that, made some good demos. And I got to the point where after a couple of years, I was making more money a year doing the freelance voiceover thing on the side than I was working 6 days a week at the radio station. And it didn't make any sense. So I finally, after 10 years, on the air in Cleveland, quit radio and was just gonna, stay in the Cleveland area to pursue the voiceover thing. And then, as it turned out, like within a month after I quit radio, I got a phone call from our landlord saying that he was going to be selling the house that we were living in. Well, I was married; I had 3 kids at the time, and I thought, oh man, we had to be out by. This was in the summer of 1984. And we had to be out by the end of September. And I thought, well, I got to be settled someplace before that because I got kids I got to get into school.
And that was the move to Los Angeles, right?
And that was it, yeah. And so I thought, if I got to pack up the house and move, I'll be darned if I'm going to be moving across town. I am either going to New York, where I wanted to do theater, or go to L.A., where I wanted to do on-camera theatrical stuff, TV and film. And so as it turned out, I just ended up running into a couple of friends that summer who were either one had already moved out here and said, you need to be in LA. And then the other was in the process of moving out here. And he said, we were talking about you and thinking, of all the people we know in Cleveland, you're the one guy that we think should really be in LA. So I got these 2, separate messages from people that I ran into, just weeks apart that summer. And so I thought, yeah, you know what? I think I'm going to make a stab at L.A. instead of New York. And so I came out here right after the Olympics of '84 and looked, just drove around the city, found a little place to rent. And that was like August, I want to say like 18th, 19th, something like that. It was the closing weekend of the Olympics. And literally 2 weeks later, we were living here.
That is an amazing time. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it was really nuts because when I found this little place to rent, I flew home and I told my wife that we were going, and so we had a yard sale, a garage sale, sold a car, called the moving company, and it literally moved in over Labor Day weekend of 1984. So it happened so fast, and I knew really only one person well, a gal that I had done some youth theater with in Cleveland, named Patty Dworkin. She was out here at the time and had a good agent, and so she set me up with her just an interview with her agent, and I ended up signing with them about 2 weeks after I moved here. They're a commercial agency, so they handled on-camera commercials and voiceovers, and I just got super lucky, landing a good agent just a couple weeks after I got here. And they started sending me out on gigs. And I knew that I could do a little voiceover kind of to make ends meet. while I was trying to get my theatrical career off the ground, because that's what I really wanted to do. I
Right.
didn't come out here to
Right.
do voiceover.
So voiceover was never the plan. If I did my research, Chris and I did our research right. The original plan was to be an actor, a serious actor, if I'm not correct, if I'm not mistaken. But I do want
Or
to
not so serious.
but not well
Yeah,
comedy
but
too,
an
of
on
course.
but an on-camera actor, yeah.
But I do want to double back to Cleveland here for a second here, because I did
Sure.
find an amazing fact that blew my mind, and is just a kid who grew up with radio and went to school for radio. You worked at WCGL in the late 70s, and you were a backup to Casey Kasem, from what I understand.
No, no. Okay, so we're okay.
Dying to hear this one.
Debunk the myth. The public needs to know.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So here's what happened. Yeah, it was actually WGCL, and it was a G98. It was a great rock station in
Got
Cleveland.
my notes backward.
That's all right. And yeah, it was the summer of '79, and it was in June of 1979, and we were a big rock station, and I was doing at the time, if I recall correctly, I was doing sort of swing shift stuff. I was doing nights, but then they would also put me on middays if a guy went on vacation or stuff like that. But I also ran the Casey Kasem show on Sunday mornings, American Top 40.
Love American Top 40.
And it was so great because back in those days, AT40 came in to the stations on LPs. They were on vinyl. The whole show was on vinyl. Each hour was, an hour of vinyl. So we just put the disc on the turntable and start it up, and then run the commercials, during the breaks. So what happened was, in June of '79, American Top 40 was doing a weekend that was a disco special. It was a disco retrospective. And our program director at the time hated disco. I mean, with such a white hot burning, fire in his belly, he hated disco so much. He said to me, he says, Townsend, look, this weekend, I don't want to run the AT40 disco special, so we're not going to do that. So don't do that. What I need you to do is just grab Billboard and just look at the top 40 songs, and I just want you to pull those top 40 songs, and I want you just to play those songs as if you're doing a little sort of pseudo countdown. But, you're not doing a countdown. We're just playing the tunes, okay, that would be on American Top 40. And I'm like, great, okay, that's fine. So then I thought, well, you know what? I could actually have a little fun with this. And so I'm gonna pretend like I'm filling in for Casey Kasem. And I'm not gonna say I actually am, but I'm gonna pretend I am, So I pulled all the records, and we had all commercial breaks lined up and stuff. But what I did was I went to the vinyl that we had gotten that week, and I searched for a couple of his jingles, and there were two jingles. There was one that says that went Casey's Coast to Coast, and then there was one that said American Top 40. So what I did was I took the T from Top 40. So I took that T at the end, and then I took the K off the Casey's Coast to Coast, and I just replaced it with the T. So the jingle now went TC's Coast to Coast instead of Casey's Coast to Coast. So I thought, all right, I'm too deep into this now. I'm having too much fun. So I thought, yeah, when during the breaks, I would say this, Townsend Coleman, for Casey Kasem in Hollywood, because he always said, this is Casey Kasem in Hollywood, and the whole bit.
That was a pretty spot on impression right there too, right off the top of your head, man.
Well, and so I did, I didn't do a Casey Kasem impression, but I'd sort of his cadence and his feel and stuff. And I think if I remember correctly, I actually even made up fake long distance dedications.
He
you know,
was
and-
the smoothest cadence on the radio. Just as a kid, I lived for two people. I lived for Casey Kasem, and I lived
Yeah.
for Maddie in the Morning here in Massachusetts, Kiss 108.
Yep. Oh, man.
And it was those two who really got me. Like when I went to school, it was the end of the 90s, early 2000s, and radio was starting to die. And the minute I graduated high school or college, here comes Apple with the iPhone and introducing podcasts. And I looked at my girlfriend at the time and I said, well, shit, there goes my career.
Yeah. Well, so yes, I was a big Casey Kasem fan. You know, I mean, I remember listening to AT40 from probably the very beginning of the show. I remember listening to it in high school, in probably 71, 70, 71, and then when I went off to college in 72, I don't remember when. Maybe he started in like 71 or 72, but it was like right in the beginning of his show, and he was so popular and he was so good, and I loved his delivery, and so when it came around to me doing this silly nonsense, on GCL in June of 79, I was doing sort of like a little cheap rendition of him with my cheap homebrew jingle that I did, but it was a fooler because it sounded totally legit, and so anyway, that's what I did. I did that for 3 or 4 hours, however long the show was, and that was that. Well, then the next week, then I would have like friends calling me at the radio station, and they're saying, "Dude, how did you get that gig? That's the best. Are you in LA now? Are you actually in Hollywood?" And I'm like, "No, I'm down here on St. Clair Avenue, sitting in the window, with drunks looking at me, from the sidewalk." And
You mean the old days where the studio was on the first floor, big picture window, and people would just look at you through the window like this?
Exactly. Out on the.
I remember those days.
Yeah, out on the
It's a today's show
sidewalk.
nowadays.
Yeah, right.
That happened to me in college. I DJ'd at WGAO 88.3, and a guy walks up to my window and literally presses his face against the window and just starts blowing on it, like trying to be funny. And I just looked at him and I went,
Right. Well, I used to
Should've done a
love
back
that.
room.
I used to love that because they had speakers outside on the sidewalk,
to promote
so
to
people
promote
could
the
come.
station and make you
Sure,
think
so
about
people
it,
could
show
come
up.
along. They
Yeah.
look at you through the window, hear the music, hear you while you're on the air and stuff.
It was an occasion to go down to the radio station and listen. That was a huge thing back in the day.
Well, listen, let me tell you, that's one of the things that hooked me on radio, because when I was still in high school, I was in probably 10th, maybe 11th grade. So I was probably a junior. And I remember calling one of the big radio stations in Cleveland. The big top 40 station was an AM station called Wixie 1260. And I called them at one point just out of the blue to see if I could go down to the radio station and interview the DJ on the air. And the receptionist said, yeah, I don't see why not. And so back in those days, I went to a private boys progressive prep school it was very wealthy, and they had all the greatest toys you could imagine for us guys to check out. They were really hip on like the latest technology and stuff. They had gotten, this was my high school, they had gotten the first Sony portable videotape recorder. Now it's black and white. It's half-inch reel-to-reel tape, right, with a separate camera, and you sling this thing over your shoulder, and the whole thing, it was like 40 pounds. I mean, it was
the
a
size of
beast.
a microwave.
Yep, you
Yeah,
carried
that's
you
exactly-
carried it, and then you had a separate one for the microphone too, because you had to, and then you spliced the audio later. Yeah,
And then you got the big camera on a big fat cable. So, but we could check this thing out like checking out a book from the library, and you could go, just use it for projects and fun and just how to learn with stuff. So I took this thing down to Wixie 1260 to interview this guy. His name was Chuck Dunaway. He was the midday guy or the afternoon guy on the air. And I'll never forget lugging this thing up in the elevator. And when the elevator doors opened, what you're met with immediately as the doors open is you see the DJ on the air through this floor to ceiling glass wall, and it's like the other walls are all painted like purple and white and super mod. I mean, this is 1970, 71, and so I go in, and Chuck Dunaway invited me in the on-air studio, and we got chatting and stuff, and while the song was going, and then he sort of give me the high sign to shut up, and then he'd open the mic, do his break, and then get back into another tune, and then we'd chat again. And I was so enamored seeing this guy. I mean, this is a voice that lived in my head already. So seeing him, I'm 2 feet away from him, and we're talking face to face. It was like such a surreal moment for me. And so that's what really, really hooked me on this notion of, yeah, you know what? I think I want to have something to do with that business, because this is way too cool. And so, yeah. So, now cut to 1979 when I'm on the air in a studio behind a glass window, with drunks on the sidewalk.
It's an amazing feeling, right?
It
Best
was
feeling in the world.
It was amazing. Yeah. So anyway, so that Casey Kasem thing that happened, but then the following week, somehow word got back to Westwood One, the syndicator or the producer of the show here in LA, that I had done this. And they sent a cease and desist letter to the radio station. And the radio station got a kick out of it when I was doing it. But when they got this cease and desist letter from Westwood's, I think it was Westwood One, from their lawyers.
They're still really big. They have an office literally here in Boston. They have one 2 towns over from us, ironically, in Westwood. And then the New York City office. So yes, do continue, please.
Yeah, so that was it. So I kind of got a little slap on the wrist for that and such. But so the addendum to this story, and then I'll shut up about it, is that, so now cut to years later when I'm living out here, and this had to be probably, I don't know, maybe early 90s, okay? And I'm over at LA Studios, where I had a standing 9 o'clock session every morning for Home Depot. I was a voice of Home Depot for a long time, and I get a call on my cell phone from a number that I don't recognize. And then typically I wouldn't answer those, but for some reason I'm sitting there in the lobby and I answered it. And the guy on the other line, he says, "Hi, Mr. Coleman, you don't know me, but I'm so-and-so. And I used to work for Casey Kasem on American Top 40. And I remember you in 1979 did this thing on the radio," and he starts saying this, and now I'm starting to panic because I'm thinking, oh crap, it's like somehow now, all these years later, now I'm going to get my knuckles wrapped for doing this.
I'm in danger.
And he says, and I'm writing a book. His name is Rob Durkee. So I'm writing a book about the history of American Top 40, and I want to include your story. I'm like, what? And he said, yeah, really, I'd love to interview you about that. And I'm saying, well, how do you even know about this? And he said, oh, listen, dude, that episode that you did, I have a bootleg of it, and it's one of our most requested cassettes that I send out.
That's amazing.
Wow.
You gotta be kidding me. You have that? And because I actually recorded the whole thing. So I have the whole thing on, one of the big 10-inch, 10.5-inch,
10.5-inch reels, yeah.
Yeah. And so I have it, and it's never been played, it's never been put through a tape machine since 1979. So I don't even know if the thing could play anymore. But somehow somebody made a bootleg of this thing, recorded it while I was doing it, and he got his hands on it and was making copies of this thing and sending them out on request to people. And so I said, dude, I would love to hear that. And so he sent me a copy of it, a couple of it was like a multiple cassette thing that he sent me. And so I started listening to it, and it was too painful. It was so bad I mean, the quality was fine, but I was so bad. I was a terrible DJ. I mean, it really was. And
Same.
I was like an actor pretending to be a DJ. I wasn't really, I was just a terrible DJ. So anyway, and I'm listening to this and I'm going, man, this is just hurts me. So I could only listen to just a couple of breaks and then I had to put it away. But yeah, all those years later, this guy calls me and so then he sent me a copy of the book. And so I have this book and sure enough, there's a chapter with this story in there about me, you know, doing that silly Casey Kasem knockoff for that disco weekend. So that's what that was all about.
That is. I am so
That's
glad
incredible.
I'm so glad my notes were fucked
We
up
could,
because
we
that was
could
the best
end
story
the
ever.
episode here and it'd be a fully fledged episode. That's amazing.
Thanks for watching the Brent Show, guys. That's it. We'll see you next time. Part 2 with Townsend Coleman, 2 weeks. Oh my! Wow, that was. Guys, I don't know about you, but that was probably the most amazing side story. I'm glad I cut in there with that. That was. I mean, I grew up in radio. Like, it was something I always wanted to do. Guys like you and Cam Clark really made me want to get into, you know, radio. And then Rob with Animaniacs and Turtles and everything. And it was like, you know, and then just reading on all of you, how you all got your starts and hearing stories from Renee. We had Renee on, last December, Smallz?
Yeah,
that
it
was
right after the holidays.
guys, if you haven't watched that episode, please go back and watch episode 9 of season 1. Renee was an amazing interview. Oh God, I can't wait to see you all. First of all, I can't wait to see you guys in person. But it was just such a great story, just hearing about everything. And she started telling all these side stories about you guys, and literally, just the parallels to all of you were amazing. But man, that story just being someone who grew up admiring Casey Kasem and being obsessed with the radio when I was a kid, and you know, being there for the fall of radio and being like, well, my career just went out the window, and being like, what am I going to do? I've already given up on hockey because of my hip. I can't do radio now because radio is dead. And then I started looking at this whole podcast thing, and here I am 20 years later with my best friends running a show, interviewing our heroes.
Basically,
you know,
doing today's version of radio. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
You know,
afraid of
It's
it.
just got a visual into it now.
Yeah,
And
right.
It's great. It is great.
Let me tell you something. One more little addendum to that, the Casey Kasem thing is it. So once I'd moved out here, and I fell into animation, cartoons, something I had never thought about doing, and in like I want to say it's like maybe 87 or 88, we had an animation strike, and
I remember that.
I was walking the picket line, and there was Casey Kasem, and I had my son, who was 10 years old at the time, with me, and we're walking the picket line, and I see Casey Kasem walking the picket line with us. And I had never met him, and I was unsure of whether or not I should go up to him and introduce myself or not having any idea if he'd even know my name or connect my name to, you know, what had happened in '79. But yeah, because by that time it was probably 8 or 9 years later, you know, and I'm sure if he ever even heard about it, and he may not have, I don't know. But I was nervous to go introduce myself, and then I thought, screw it, I'm just going to go introduce myself. And he never alluded to it, never let on that, you know, he knew anything about it. I certainly didn't bring it up. But he was such a pleasure to chat with and to walk with. And I got that opportunity to kind of pick his brain and, you know, get his background and tell him a little bit about my background and stuff. And here I got my son tagging along with me. And all of a sudden my pager goes off. Because back in those days, of course, it was long before cell phones.
If you didn't have a pager in the 90s, folks, you were nobody. Just look at me. I was nobody in the 90s. I wanted a nice, clear pager with all the neon lights. Didn't get one.
Oh, damn.
Damn you, Mom.
Well, yeah, right. So my pager goes off. It's my agent with an audition for me that I have to go to like right away. So I thought, oh, geez, you know, what am I going to do? So, and it was fairly nearby. So I thought I could just cut out, go do the audition, and then come back. And so I didn't know if Chris, my son, wanted to go with me to that, or he wanted to just stay, you know, walk. So I asked him, I said, buddy, would you be willing to, you know, take my sign here and just continue to walk the picket line while I'm gone? I'm only going to be about, you know, 20 or 30 minutes. And he said, no, that's fine. So Casey says, I'll keep an eye on him. So my son Chris ends up walking the picket line with Casey Kasem while I'm gone at this audition. And, and then I get back and, they're just chatting away and stuff. I was like, this is so surreal to me that I have, that I was like in Cleveland not that long ago.
Shit.
And here I'm in Hollywood and I'm doing cartoons and I'm on a picket line for the union that I'm in. And my son, I was just all
and you're
too
the
weird.
voice of America babysitting your kid.
My
Right, exactly.
God!
Yeah.
Yo.
What?
That's
Yeah.
That is the
wild.
greatest
Yeah.
fucking addendum to a story in the history of stories.
Okay, now we can end the show.
Wow! Thanks for watching the Brand Show. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Woo!
Yeah. Yeah.
My God, I got the vapors.
So keep your feet on the ground. Keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for the stars.
That is the. I don't think there's ever going to be a story greater than that ever told. With that being said,
I don't know about that, but
I'm going to start looping. I'm looping in. I'm going to start looping in audience questions. So you met a good friend of mine over the weekend. You met Steve. He dresses as Peter Griffin. He's in the chat right now, and he has a question for you. He is an aspiring voice actor, and his question is, what advice would you give to someone like himself for breaking into the industry?
Ooh, which part of the industry?
I was about to say the same thing because that's
yeah, because there's so many little niches in this industry. It depends on kind of what you're after. But if he's talking about animation, animation proper, then I mean, all animation is acting. It's not about silly voices. It is acting straight up. And voice actors are full-on actors. It's just they're not doing it on camera or on stage. It's behind a mic. But let me tell you, it is acting. And so, I'd say, first of all, take acting classes for one. Take improv classes. If it's animation that you want to do, you really have to be out here for that. Now, there are exceptions, of course. Steve Bloom is in Hawaii now. And he's doing all his work from down there. With today's technology, like we got going on here right now, you can pretty much work from anywhere. But the animation is a little different animal because the studios and the producers still like to have the casts together in the studio ensemble. Okay. It's the way I used to do all the shows that I did. There wasn't a single show that I ever did where I just went in by myself and did pickups, which is the way they do it in feature animation, because I think primarily because it's hard, that's all celebrities on feature animation. And, they can't get these guys all in the studio at the same time. So, they schedule them, as they can get them and bring them into the studio one at a time. And they just wildline all their lines. But in TV animation, it's different. They really want to get everybody in the studio all together. Now, of course, the pandemic shook things up a bit and changed that for a while. But I mean, even at that, we have technology with InQuality's IPDTL to get 6 actors online at a time, being able to interact with each other, hear each other, real time, very little latency, and so IPDTL was very popular during the pandemic and being able to make that happen rather than having to have your actors online just one at a time doing their stuff wildline. Anyway, that was the pandemic thing. So it was everybody in the studio at the same time before the pandemic, and now it's pretty much going back to that. And
thank God, by the way, may I add, being in front of people again.
Yeah, no kidding. And with the ensemble way of doing it, you have a much different energy. Everybody's in the room at the same time and everybody's joking around, and it's just a much different, lighter, more energized feel when you're all together. And so that's why they like doing it like that, and I can always tell the difference You know, when something feels to me like it was just, you know, piecemealed, sort of Frankenstein together with actors, you know, recording by themselves, you know, online one at a time, and then they, you know, marry it all together. So yeah, so that's the question was, you know, I guess, did you ever find out from him, from Steve, whether it was animation that he was talking about specifically, or voiceover in general, or what?
He hasn't posted anything in the chat. And for those of you who don't know who Steve Bloom is, okay, Steve Bloom was Zeb in Star Wars Rebels. He's also a part of Cowboy Bebop, a bunch of stuff.
My gosh.
He is in. Steve Bloom has been in everything. He's Ares in God of War. He's literally one of the most, next to a few names like Nolan North and so forth, the late great, the greatest of all time, Kevin Conroy. He's literally right up there on that plane of, you know, people that will be remembered forever. But Steve also just wrote
you know,
in the chat,
Steve,
yes, animation.
I think Steve has broken a couple of he's in the Guinness World Records for I want to say the most, like a couple of times he's got a couple of world records for like doing the most, I'm gonna screw this up, but like the most characters in video games. He's done like more characters in video games than anybody ever.
I could pull 7 games off my shelf right now that he's easily been in. It's ridiculous. Every time I turn around and I get to the end credits and I see Steve Bloom as, and I'm like, how the fuck did I not know that was Steve? You know him.
You didn't know it was Steve because he's that good.
Well,
you know, he's that versatile.
You know, but with some folks, like when you go back and you listen to things as an adult, like you, like I go back and I watch Pro Stars, or I watch The Tick, or I watch Turtles, and I can tell it's you. Like you can hear certain things, like when you yell, like when you do it, like I can hear it across every character you play. And I'm like, it's Townsend.
There's his yell. That's the same yell.
For the record, the number for Steve Bloom, I just had to look up, is 462 games currently.
What is the biggest game? Since we're on that topic really quick, since we're, you know, just kind of working through this here, what was the biggest game of all, besides Metal Gear Solid? I know he's like in Snake Eater. He's in the new God of Wars. I forget. There was one big title before all that. There was one humongous title, like from our youth, that he was in. I got, you know what? I got my phone right. I need to buy an iPad, for crying out loud, so that way I have this. But he was the Toonami robot. He was in Transformers Prime. He was Starscream in Transformers Prime. He's Sub-Zero in Mortal Kombat.
Arkham series.
Yep. He's the one who tells you, "I'll eat your bones." Mangle your.
Grayson Hunt in one of my favorite games, Bulletstorm.
Bulletstorm's a great game. Yep.
Black Ops,
he's
Dead
Sub-Zero
Island,
in Mortal
Deadpool.
Kombat X in 11. He's Hal Jordan, Green Lantern, in Injustice. Man, he's done like everything. He's Devin Ross in Clive Barker's Jericho.
Yep.
Like
He was Sub-Zero in Mortal Kombat
he's
X.
Spike Spiegel in one of everyone's intros to anime. Zero saying in the chat, like, you know, it's just crazy. Like guys, like same with Kevin Conroy. Once he did Batman, like everywhere you turned around, he was there. You know, and that is a guy I miss. May I also say, as a cancer survivor, fuck cancer. But you know, you start to see stuff like that, and you start to see, especially in the game industry, having been there for 15 years. You see guys that just kind of snowball and they make their way back in, and we'll get to that with you in a little bit here. We have time for one more question from the chat before we go to our first break here at 9:15. If you guys have a question, throw it in the chat now. Let's get a question in front of Townsend, or I will ask a question. And you don't want me asking questions, so I'm just going to tap the Jeopardy sound. The guys aren't going to be able to hear it. I'm going to be able to hear it, so...
The Jeopardy sound. That's
I literally
He will use all 30 seconds of this to someone give a question.
It's literally playing. You can see it.
That's great.
Anybody? Da-da-da. All right. I will ask then, since. Oh wait, no. Zero just asked. Is there a character that you wanted to voice that you never got to voice? As my camera goes out of focus.
No, not really. You know, because here's the deal. Whenever I audition for something, I always figured that, you know, whoever gets this part is the guy that was supposed to get this part. And if that's me, then so be it. And if it's not me, then so be it. You know, there certainly were parts that I auditioned for that I thought, man, this would be a blast to get. But then when I would hear who got it, and, you know, then I wouldn't get it. And then I'd hear who got it. And then I'd be, oh, well, okay, that makes perfect sense, you know. But yeah, so there weren't any real parts out there that I was dying to get. I do remember when I first moved to town. So when I was on the radio, I used to do some bits when I was doing some morning drive shows, and I'd do some characters and stuff. And I used to think that I did a pretty decent Kermit the Frog. In fact, I'll tell you. So this past weekend, I was in Newark, New Jersey for a Comic-Con at Contropolis.
And the altered reality, folks.
And Steve Whitmire was there. Now, Steve is one of the original Muppeteers, the voice of Wembley on Fraggle Rock and just a million other characters. And so we were chatting, and I was fortunate enough to do the voice of Gobo on the animated Fraggle Rock.
And you sang the theme song, didn't you?
Yeah. We got to sing the whole theme song just like it was on the Muppet version. That was such a blast, and I've got video of that session, of that singing session. That was a riot.
Cool. That's cool. Now, can we get you to sing the theme?
No.
I had to ask. I'd been thinking about it all week. I was writing my notes out. And I'm like, ask Townsend to sing the Fraggle Rock theme with me.
Yeah.
God, I miss Fraggle Rock.
Great show.
I need to rewatch that.
Oh, wait a
show.
minute.
It was such a fun show to do, but oh my gosh! So now I've completely forgotten why I even brought that up. So
you were talking, man. Now I'm brain dead.
Whatever.
When are you not brain dead? Let's be real.
Every day.
So,
Yeah.
why did I even bring that up? There was some connection about something we were just talking about. Anyway,
You were talking about you were with Chemo Brain.
You
Well,
were
Steve-
with someone somewhere.
You were at the
Yeah.
convention with a puppeteer from the.
right. Well, that was Steve Whitmire.
Steve
We were
Whitmire,
chatting
there
about
it
this,
is.
but we were talking about something about Fraggles. I don't remember. No, it was something connected to something that I was just talking about, and I don't remember what it was.
It'll come back to one of us at like 3 in the
That's
morning.
right.
And it's like, I got it.
That's right. Oh, now
He'll
I
call-
remember.
He'll call me at 3 a.m. and be like, "It was this," and I'll be like,
Right.
"We're not on
Right.
the air, pal."
It's
Goddamn,
fine,
pal.
so what? I'll call you now at 3 in the morning. Just lay the phone on the pillow just to spite you.
You would. All right. Well, we'll get back to it, guys. We're going to go to our first break. It is 9:15. So get up, get yourself a root beer, stretch, do something. Make sure you stick around. Townsend Coleman's here on The Brand Show. We will be right back with you. About 5 minutes, so don't go anywhere.
Whoa, sorry, dude. You gotta let me finish my cowabunga, otherwise it gets stuck in my throat and I can't. I don't know what to do with it.
I say we let him run it back one more time.
There you go. Ready? Okay, here we go. All right. Cowabunga, dudes! Whoa, that's bodacious.
I don't know how my day can get any better than this, guys. Michaelangelo has cowabunged me.
You've been cowabunged.
I have been officially. It's been great, guys. I'll see you next week. Yeah, no, I'm
Okay.
just kidding, guys.
Good night, everybody.
Smallz.
Hey, okay, here we
Smallz
go.
will be right back. we lost Smallz. He had to go put my niece Hattie to bed, and he had to get his laundry. He's also checking on Splinter since Mikey is with us and the boys are on vacation. Let's get back right into that story. We were talking about Contropolis and Fraggle Rock. So please pick up where you left off.
Oh, dude, I can't because I don't remember. I don't remember why I was even going in that direction. It was attached to something that we were talking about.
We'll
and
get back to it then.
It's escaped me completely. So yeah.
Let's start with the early days of your career then. Just for me, like since I've got you for 5 minutes by myself, you voiced so much stuff. I think one of my favorite things, and I've never seen it to this day, and I'm just going to run through a few things here, okay? Operation Blue Line, which was one of the original pitches for the Ninja Turtles that Surge Licensing did, if my information is right. Mark did this whole pitch for Surge Licensing for Ninja Turtles that was brought to Playmates, and it was phenomenal. Now, you have voiced my absolute favorite villain in the entire world, and people are going to laugh when I say this, and I love the Rat King. He is my favorite.
All right, yes.
What an underrated villain. What an underrated action figure. What just an underrated, amazing character. You were rewinding and the G1 Transformers, Corporal Cape Man and Inspector Gadget.
That was my first cartoon role.
And then Snorks after that, if I'm not mistaken, too. You did some additional voices.
Yeah, Snorks, and I think I did maybe Smurfs and a couple of those, Hanna-Barbera shows back then, where they'd bring you in for like one episode of a show. Just you're in doing either a guest spot or incidental, something like that. But yeah, my first cartoon role was Corporal Cape Man on Inspector Gadget. I got that 6 months after I moved here, and I'd never given any thought to doing cartoons, but my agent sent me on this audition, and I thought, that could be kind of fun. So I went and did it, and, lo and behold, like just a couple days later, they called my agent, they booked me on it, and I, showed up at a little studio in Burbank for my very first cartoon session, and it's just four of us in the studio. It's Maurice LaMarche, Frank Welker, me, and Don Adams. And
wow.
It was like...
Don Adams? Wait, Don Adams? The Don Adams.
That's right. Yeah, so there I am. I got Don Adams sitting on one side of me and Frank Welker sitting on the other side of me, and I didn't know
Marauders Row. Holy shit!
Yeah, and I didn't know who Frank was at the time because, like I said, I didn't have really any aspirations of getting into cartoons, and I wasn't watching cartoons in those days.
One of the greatest of all time, Frank Welker.
And I didn't know who Maurice LaMarche was at the time either. But the crazy thing was that my kids used to watch Inspector Gadget, and so before we moved to L.A., I would hear it on in the background at home, and I would hear this Dr. Claw voice and wonder who in the world voices a character like that with a voice that this actor must be 9 feet tall and 800 pounds.
He was a variety of our childhood too. So Maurice LaMarche, one of the greatest.
So when I got in the studio, I was looking at Mo and I was looking at Frank and talking to them and thinking, well, neither of these guys are Dr. Claw, and I knew that Don Adams, wouldn't have been him. So I figured it was just another actor who they, were going to record wild. And so we're going through the script, and I see that there's some Dr. Claw lines in this episode, and so I figure we're just going to skip over it. And we get to that page when we finally launch into our first record, and we get to that page and we get to the Dr. Claw line, and I'm thinking we're just going to skip right over it and go to the next line. And all of a sudden, Frank, who's literally sitting on my left, opens his mouth, and out comes this Dr. Claw voice. And I was just so shocked, I gasped out loud. And I said, "Oh my gosh, it's you." And he looked at me and he just kind of smiled sheepishly and said, "Yeah, it's me." And he could see that I was just blown away by the fact that this incredible voice was falling out of his face. Because Frank has a very easygoing, almost very light, natural speaking voice, a little bit higher and stuff. So there's no way in the world I would, it's kind of like Jimmy Cummings, so just ultra versatile.
I wear Jim Cummings on my arm every day.
Yeah, well, and rightly so, because I'll tell you, these guys, they're the masters. They're the kings of this business. And I just didn't realize this about Frank. I didn't know who he was. And so that was my introduction to Frank. It was mind blowing.
What a voice to be next to. He's been in like everything. He's oh God, I forget who he is in Dino Riders. I was just watching Dino Riders earlier today. But he's Megatron and Soundwave. He's in Futurama. He's literally in everything, and so often across from Peter Cullen. And it's just, and in voice acting. And you found this out early on, and I'm gonna let you continue here in a minute, because this just goes on and it gets better and better as time goes on through this story. But you look at Welker and Cullen; they were together, and then we get you guys in Ninja Turtles. We get Clark, Gordon, Paulson, you, and just the parallels there. And it's like, you look at those, the way I see it is you just see parallels. Like Cullen and Welker have been together their entire career. You guys have all been together your entire career. You have worked alongside these people, and it's when you go through and you use an app called Plex, and you start watching stuff, or you look at IMDb and you start looking at someone's IMDb and you start looking into the show. And seeing just how small that community is, and just how many amazing people have come through voice acting. And it's just, man,
it's a lot bigger. It's a lot bigger now than it was when I came to town in '84. But I'll tell you, when I got lucky enough to get that show on Inspector Gadget and asked my agents to please send me out on more of that stuff, they did, and I started booking shows and got in over to Hanna-Barbera, and that's where I used to work with Frank and Peter both, on shows that they were doing, and I'd be doing incidentals and stuff. But just to be able to be in the same studio with
Frank
these guys.
Was on the Jetsons, wasn't he?
Frank?
Yes, he was orbiting and someone else in the Jetsons.
I don't doubt it. He was on everything. I remember going and seeing Star Trek in the theater, and I always sit through the credits. And seeing Frank's name pop up in the credits at the end of Star Trek, and his credit was for Spock's screams. Wow. That's what Frank
in the original
did.
Star Trek movie.
Yeah, that's what Frank
I
did.
know what I'm watching tonight.
Yeah, and so, Frank, he's so amazing, because he does all these like crazy monster and animal sounds, but sound effects too. I remember in that very first a gadget session where I met him, and Mo was great, because Mo could see that I was fascinated by this guy that I didn't know anything about. And so he goes, Frank, do your ducks. And Frank had this bit where he'd be like 17 or 27 ducks singing simultaneously. And it's this craziest, weirdest thing, but he does this thing with his voice where you got all these weird harmonics in it, and he does this duck voice that ends up coming out sounding like it's a whole gaggle of ducks, singing. And then he did this thing where he took, what was, he was miming like a soda can, right? And he holds it up like this, and then he taps on it, and then he takes the tab and he pulls the tab back, and he's doing all the sound effects for all this stuff. And he pulls the tab back, you hear the aluminum break, and then you hear the bubbles, and then he drinks it, and then he belches, and then it's like one thing after another. He just is so brilliant at so many crazy, weird, sort of esoteric vocal, creations. He's
Magamations. He's something.
Yeah.
And
well, yeah.
it's funny, he doesn't get that credit with the Comic-Con audience, but someone like yourself, knows, and I knew some of this. I knew the duck story sort of,
Right.
but just it's amazing how deep voice acting went back in those days and how sound effects were created and Inspector Gadget, probably one of the formative shows of the 80s that I think literally any of the 80s kids here in my chat could legitimately just sit here and, we all remember the theme song per verbatim, just every bit of it, the bam ba bam Inspector Gadget, bam
Right. Right.
And it comes off the top of our heads, just like, and we're getting very close to it, but Mike Patton's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles theme that he wrote in the 80s. And then when you turn on any of the newer versions of the arcade machines, it's not the same because they couldn't get the license to it, but it's so iconic is what I'm getting at, that you remember that and you notice when it's not correct. Like for episodes at the and again, we're getting close to Turtles at the end where, Rob wasn't Raphael, or you weren't Michaelangelo, or when James Avery passed away and Shredder was replaced. And I know you filled in as Shredder for a couple episodes, but we'll get to that. So going in, we're right on pace. So after Inspector Gadget, one of my favorite things from when I was a kid, and I don't think it really starts to really pick up until we get to 1986 and so forth. But please continue on. Let's walk through the journey. Let's continue these larger roles. Let's not go into additional voices because we could talk forever about how you were in the Glow Friends and the Kingdom Chums, Little David's Adventures and so forth.
Right.
But
Well,
please continue.
Yeah. So in '86, let me see. I was doing Teen Wolf. I was Scott Howard on Teen Wolf. Yeah, and that was a particular thrill for me because June Foray played my grandmother in that. So
now that's wild.
I was one of the lucky ones, to finally be able to say that I did a show with Junie and she played my grandmother in this thing. So
and she's a local actually too. She's from Springfield, Massachusetts. Yes.
Yeah. And in '86, that's when I was doing Fraggle Rock, too. So it was the first show that I did, really the only show that I ever did where I had to do a voice match. And I had to match Jerry Nelson's original Gobo from the Muppet version of Fraggle Rock. And so I did Gobo, Architect, and Wrench on that show. And it was during the recording of that show in '86, I guess, that our voice director came in and said he was going to be directing this new series called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and so he brought us into audition for that, and right. You mean Massachusetts? Actually,
Northampton,
New Hampshire though.
By way of Dover, New Hampshire, which where I am is I'm in Boston. Right outside of
where
Proper.
I come in.
And it's literally he lives like 15 minutes up the road. He lives in Derry, New Hampshire. And it's funny. You go to Dover now and there's actual like sewer covers right by the old and the house has been named a national monument. But it's a New England thing, and it's something that we as New Englanders hold very, very, very close to our hearts, and it's something we're like, man, I can't tell you when I met Peter and Kevin for the first time, and I bought Kevin's, I used to own Kevin's original third print of the original issue, and hearing the stories and sitting down with them and interviewing Kevin in 2015 was, goddamn, what a highlight. But continue on, because we're right at that point where I know everybody wants to hear about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, so that's where Turtles came up for me. Is Stu brought us in to audition for it. We all auditioned for all 4 Turtles, and in fact, I still have my audition materials, and was just luck of the draw, man. We were the lucky 4 who got cast in this show, and the rest, as they say, is history.
I mean, I can say this with sincerity. The voice cast for that show is, to this day, and we're talking almost 40 years later, there is not a more definitive voice cast who has gone on to do such great things. Like, and just looking at the rise of all of you. I'm not talking social media numbers, who's followed the most. I'm talking about where you have gone in the industry and what Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is meant to. And we were talking about this off air. What Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles meant to an entire generation, what it taught us, because we're the generation who had fathers who left for milk and cigarettes and never came back. I particularly have a father who fathered 12 other children and a mother who, yeah. But the point is that they stuck us in front of the TV and someone said, hey, give these kids a good message. You know, you got those after message things with Silverhawks, where Silverhawks would teach you about planets. You'd go on Turtles. The message would be good to all people. Don't judge people because they're different. You'd watch He-Man. Prince Adam would give, or Man-at-Arms would give you something after the show. The lesson of today's show is don't do drugs, kids. And it was, all right, He-Man, I'm not going to do drugs. Okay, Michaelangelo, I'm going to be good to elderly people and I'm going to have my pizza. I'm going to, you know, and it's strange to say this, and I mean this, but shit, you guys basically raised us through a zenith in a lot of ways and molded what we've become. Here I am 40 years later, even rebuying repurposed versions because, you know, Playmates has, you know, realized there's a great nostalgia out there, and our kids, my daughter had it when she was a kid, and now we have it with Mutant Mayhem. My grandkids will have it when I become a grandfather in the next 5 to 10 years probably. But it's amazing like how generational it's become, and you've come back so many times to be a part of newer iterations of Turtles. Like I know you guys played the 80s Turtles in one of the newer seasons. I believe it was the 2012 season after Nickelodeon took over. And just to see what Turtles spawned, and let's take a moment on this because Turtles, excuse me, what an amazing story that was from Renee. But we're better human beings because of you guys being behind a microphone and passing a message on to us because we couldn't pull away.
Yeah.
Real as it gets right there.
Yeah, and we hear these stories at Comic-Cons all the time. And I'll tell you, Billy, it never gets old. You know, I love hearing it. I love the fans. Because if it wasn't for the fans, we wouldn't be here. You know, period. If it wasn't for you guys, you know, we wouldn't have a job. And but there isn't a con that we go to that nowadays that we don't hear just some of the most heartwarming and heart-wrenching stories. You know, from I still call you guys kids, you know, even though you're, you know, mid 40s now, but it's like
early 40s, but yeah.
Well, yeah, but you know what I mean. So
side.
it's you know, you were, you know, 8 years old back then, and
Yeah.
and hearing the stories about what Turtles meant to you guys and how it have impacted your life or affected you in certain ways that maybe got you through some tough times, and you know, you remember. I mean, listen, when I've got a 6'3", you know, 240-pound, you know, black guy coming up to me and looking at me in the face and then starting to tear up because of what Ninja Turtles, what Michaelangelo, you know, taught him when he was, you know, 9 years old about, you know, keeping your chin up and you know, being able to, you know, keep a positive attitude through real difficult situations because his parents were splitting up. It's like it's mind bending, you know, to realize that, you know, I mean, back then we had no idea we were doing anything that was going to have any sort of lasting impact, positive impact on kids.
It's amazing.
But then come to find out all these years later that it did.
And,
you know,
and the crazy.
And we get a chance to hear these stories now, which is just. It's so great.
It's so deeply ingrained in who we are. And, you know, my mom said to me at the age of 12, she's like, you don't need toys anymore. And she tried to throw out my toys. She eventually got successful and did. And then I went and spent probably, I don't know, anybody want to guess how many thousands of dollars I've spent on toys in my lifetime? Rebecca, you probably know if you're watching. But you know, one thing about our generation, and Smallz, I'm sure you can agree to this as the music guy, a physical manifestation of something that meant something to us is so important, and we're gonna get on from Turtles. I don't want to spend the whole night. I could spend the whole night on Turtles personally, but there's so much more to your career to talk about. So many more fun things. And we're gonna spend a few minutes on it, but not too much time. I promise you. But like you look back and you look at something as simple as an action figure like this Warrior Michaelangelo. You know, $250 to be able to hold something this special in my hand. And well, Metalhead was my favorite side character of all time was Metalhead. And if I'm not mistaken, Rob actually, Barry voiced him.
Was it Barry? Yeah, I couldn't tell you. I don't remember.
But Metalhead was my favorite. And when I was a kid, Michelangelo was my favorite. As I've grown older, it's been Michelangelo and Donatello because I'm the nerdy fun guy. And that's just how I've been. And my sister is in the chat telling me Usagi was her favorite side character, which you also voiced.
Right.
But, you know, the physical manifestation of being able to hold a representation of a character that you love. Casey Jones, April O'Neil, Michelangelo, Donatello, any of them, heck the Tick.
Hey, listen, we see these treasures all the time at cons, you know, folks just like yourself, bring them to the con for us to autograph. Because these are their treasures. These mean more to them than just about any worldly possession they've got.
I would, besides my dog and my wife and my kid, there is nothing else in this house that I care about. And like it's them, and then it's my toy collection. And I sold my comic collection a bunch of years ago, and my wife said to me, she goes, "You need to promise me one thing." I'm like, "What's that?" She goes, "You're never going to sell your toy collection."
Wow.
Like, well, the idea is, and we talked about this off air too, I want it to be in the Strong Museum someday, because I guarantee you 100 years from now, when you and I are long gone and Smallz is long gone and people are fighting over, I don't know, drive-thrus or, you know, getting ready to move to space or underwater, there will be a museum highlighting pop culture, because pop culture has become such a huge piece, especially, you know, with this 80s culture. And I'll tell you, I know who's in this chat right now. There are toy dealers in this chat, Turtle fans, people who still love and live for all of this. So, like, I think I speak for everybody here saying that if we didn't have Ninja Turtles, I think we all would have been fucked.
Honestly, yeah. You all got me through a lot when I was younger.
I put him through the ringer again and had him watch season 1 again, just, you know, as we got
put
it.
me through the ringer like I didn't willingly.
No,
watch
he
the
did it
Turtles
willingly.
again.
He did it willingly, and we had great conversations
Think
about
of simpler times in life.
But I you know, and we'll move on from Turtles after this. I think my favorite episode of that show ever is episode 1 because of the whole street of ninja things. So Ninja Pizza, Ninja Dry Cleaning, Ninja Barbecue.
Right.
And I make those jokes all the time, and it's just like, you know, I mean, it's just, man, it's a part of who I am, and it never leaves me, and like the lessons never will either, and I've passed them on to my kid, you know, and I will pass them on to my grandchildren when I have grandchildren, apparently, if I ever do. I have a grand cat, so I'm a granddad technically. I have a grand cat. I can't pass lessons on to him except for don't scratch mom's couch. So
it's a cat. They're never going to listen.
Exactly. My dog barely listens. Let's get to that. But you, since that original read of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and continue on Teen Wolf and Ninja Turtles, 21 episodes of Teen Wolf. Gem of the Holograms was also there. You were Rory and Gem of the Holograms. But let's pick right back up. Let's talk about that time frame, because there was a lot going on for you, especially during those late 80s. Ninja Turtles just, you know, don't get me wrong, you went like Bitcoin. You just went to the moon.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, we were all shocked that Turtles turned into what it did. And I'm probably more shocked now than I was then that this franchise it's the franchise that wouldn't die. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I'll tell you, when we do these cons, I can't believe the toys that they're coming out with now. You know, you mentioned the Rat King figure a little bit ago. I saw Rat King. NECA now has a Rat King out that is just.
He's about to go get it.
Right. That is. It's such a great version of the Rat King. Mm-hmm. And actually, I love all the NECA toys. Met one of the guys who works for NECA this past weekend in New Jersey, and it was great. I got a chance to tell him that what they're doing now and the toys that they're cranking out are just brilliant. I think that they look
everything
fantastic.
NECA touches is gold, in my opinion.
Yeah,
you met Blaine.
Like,
Blaine's their social media manager. He's a good friend of mine.
Yeah. So NECA and Pops are like the two really hot things right now. There he is. That's the guy.
How you
That's
don't
a
have
great-
this figure, I don't know. I will find one and bring you one if I can find one.
You know, let me tell you something. When I first started doing the series, and Playmates was coming out with these toys, I made a point. I decided at that time that I was going to go to Toys R Us. There's that little micro.
That's the
what do
new
they
Bitty
call it?
Pops. These are the new
Bitty
ones that
Pops,
just came
right.
out. Yeah.
Right. I actually had somebody ask me if I could sign that this past weekend, and I
Stop
said
it.
sure. And he said, seriously? And I said, yeah, because I've got some paint pens that are really super fine point. I could get my signature on there.
You've got to.
but anyway.
You got to do paint pen. As a collector, I will tell
Yeah.
you, never sign anything in Sharpie because Sharpie. I have Jerry only signed a Misfits figure for me.
Yeah.
It's faded since. I texted him the other day.
Unless it's Sharpie Extreme. I don't know if you've seen those, but the Sharpie Extreme will last.
Yeah, not a fan
That
of
won't
them.
fade.
I would
But-
prefer to have something in a nice bright orange or a purple or a red.
Of course.
It just
Yeah.
looks so much better on the wall.
But when we first started doing the show, I decided I was going to get one of everything that Playmates put out.
It's a great way to
Yeah.
be. I like it.
Yeah, and I thought I'm gonna buy one of everything, and I'm not gonna open them. They're gonna just go into storage, and that's the way it's gonna be. Well, I did that for about a year. Went to Toys R Us every week, was looking for the new Turtles figures and stuff, and I got to the point where they were cranking out so many different versions of everything that I thought I can't keep up with this. This is killing me. And so finally, after about a year and a half, I just quit, and I haven't bought anything since. So all those great toys that you've got, and that I've seen them come out with over the years, I don't have any.
I
of
will
that
find
stuff.
you a Rat King, and I will bring it to you in November. I promise you.
Well,
that is
he
my
would
that is
bring
my
the
thank
arcade
you.
Machine. He would bring the arcade machine.
Well,
and have you all sign
no,
it.
I have some older stuff. I have more Donatello original on card stuff. Like if you can kind of see it right behind me, there's a blue box right there, next to the Turtles 2 box right there on the right. That's one of the old giant turtles. It's the only one I have on card, and that figure, ironically enough, came to me in a trade. So I have a friend up here who owns a comic book shop called Nick's Comic Strip. And I brought him a bunch of Funko Pops, as I remember, and I was like, I really want this. You willing to trade? And it's like it was, at the time, it's a lot more now, but it was $200 for this figure at the time. And he was like, yeah, let's do it. I mean, I ate my lunch on that one, but hey, to have that in that case and to know that when I meet Barry in November, I can have him sign that, huge
Right.
deal.
Right.
Huge deal. But yeah.
That's awesome, man.
So yeah, it will. There's been a lot of toys. I see you have the original Michaelangelo that NECA did, right behind you, next to your Usagi and your Rat King, and it's just, man, they get cooler and cooler. And having a screen accurate representation of the greatest villain of all time. You can fight me in the comments about this. Is
Greatest villain of all time. That's
I
great.
think the Rat King was the most, and I say that because the Rat King was the most off the wall random thing. Like, how do you make rats cool?
I was just reading that they're doing something with the Rat King now.
I think he's in the new movie. They haven't told us yet, but they redid,
Is that what it is?
I think so, but they redid Baxter and they renamed him Superfly. But look at him, he's awesome.
Right.
I'm excited about that, but I'm not gonna. As much as I want to spend all night on Turtles, and I could, I will let this conversation move on. So Turtles sent you. We're just all the way up here right now. We're going through the ceiling. We're finding you in Toys R Us. This is one of the newer ones. This is one of the repackages. You can tell by the green. But
Right.
We're finding you in Toys R Us in multiple variants of you. We're finding storage shelf variants. We're finding metalhead variants. We're finding safari adventures of you. We're finding out that you are also a scuba diver for the Navy SEALs, and that also that you have transferred over to one of the greatest properties of all time in Universal Monsters and become Frankenstein. Yeah, I told you guys I really have everything. So stock is ever so high for you. And also for those of you who wanted to know Leatherhead, this was Jim Cummings in the show.
That's
was
right.
Jim Cummings' contribution to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But
That's right.
continue on because it just goes up from here. And I know there's a lot of folks watching who want to hear more about Fraggle Rock. And I know my wife is watching upstairs and she's a big Gem of the Holograms fan. But
Yeah, I got to do. I was Riot on that, lead singer of the Stingers. Of course, I didn't get to sing, but that was somebody else who was the singing voice of Riot. But that was a fun show to do. and one of the early ones for me. And of course, Fraggle Rock doing Gobo and Architect and Wrench and that. Yeah, that was all sort of mid to late '80s stuff that I was doing, and then things started to, as we turned over into the '90s. That's when I was doing. I was Waldo on Where's Waldo, Scratch on Space Cats, Wayne Gretzky on Pro Stars.
Hey, by the way, Wayne, are you hungry? We need to
it
get
was
you on a
all-
diet, Wayne.
It was all about him eating, man. All he could do is think about food. I don't know where that came from.
That was the corniest show that I ever loved, and still
Yeah,
love
right.
to this day.
right.
To
Yeah,
this day.
yeah, and yeah. So that was all like in 90, 91, 92, 93, along in there, and then in '93 is when let me see. That's when I got the tick. In fact, that was in it. So it's coming up. It'll be what 30 years.
October 1st was the season premiere, and
It'll be
it's coming up 30 years.
30 years ago.
Right on my birthday.
Next month in August of '93 was when I auditioned for that, and so did it premiere in '93 or no? It was '94, I think, wasn't
I
it?
have
The tick premiere.
everything right here. So
94 to 96. Yeah.
okay, I'm sorry. You're right.
Right.
It was October 1st, 1994. I was 12. years
94,
old.
right? Yeah, because I auditioned for it, I did my first episode of it with Mickey Dolenz as my sidekick.
Wow.
Back then, which was
Rest in peace.
completely surreal for me because I was a huge Monkees fan and a huge Mickey Dolenz fan because I had a little drum kit and I played drums back then. I was like 12 years old, and so
You had a lot on
Actually-
there too. Cam Clark was on there. Rob
Rob
Paulson was on
Rob,
there.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, Jim Cummings,
Jess
yeah.
Harnell was sewer urchin.
That's right. Yeah,
Roger
Maurice
Rose was
LaMarche
Pinhead.
was Evil Midnight Bomber. What bombs at midnight?
Jim Cummings was Mr. Mental.
Oh, Jimmy was a lot of things. He was Barry. One of my favorite episodes of The Tick was The Tick versus The Tick, and he played Barry.
Yeah.
And he comes busting in the door of this superhero lounge, and he says, "Who's the jerk who calls himself The Tick?" And I say, "I am that jerk. Who wants to know?" It was that episode spawned one of my favorite lines where I'm telling him, I'm talking to Barry, and I say, "Yeah, well, don't count your weasels before they pop, dink."
Tick
Such
was
a great
underrated.
show.
One of the
I
highest rated.
loved that show.
One of the highest rated cartoons of the 90s, may I add, too. I feel that it was truly underrated. It was just, the humor was ahead of its time. The episode of the beginning of the show, hearing how the Tick became a part of the city, which in my
Right.
eyes sounds like it could be San Francisco, because that's what they call San Francisco, is the city.
Right.
But I think
No,
my
this
favorite...
is just a generic the city. The city.
Yeah, two parts of that show that I love more than anything were actually three. Tick gets a rogue mustache.
Right.
Probably the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. How do you make an episode about a mustache?
Right,
Outrageous.
that mustache feeling.
And then there was the opening where you go in and you talk about how you are the Tick. I am the Tick. I am mighty. And then you're like, this is why I should have a city. This is the scariest thing I could find. It was frightening in 1974. And I was just like, this is my show now. And,
Yeah.
And now as an adult, I walked into a friend's store a few weeks ago and I found the Bounding Tick figure. And I'm like, now I need to collect all of these. I can't not have them now.
Yeah, and I've got a gal who at Contropolis this past weekend brought me a bunch of the wacky wind-up figures.
Yes. Yes.
Which are great. Yeah, so some of the Tick merch is just brilliant, I think, and so fun to have.
Guys, look at this figure too. Like, these were just amazing, and it tells you, hey, on Fox Kids, and you have the giant Tick right behind you. And these were Bandai. This was early days of Bandai when Bandai came to the States and stopped doing like Super Sentai and Robo. Oh, that's a great. And he is, you know what? Besides a little bit of discoloration, he's lasted the test of time. Is that the talking one or the non-talking one?
Spawn, you face the tick. Evil is afoot. Evil is afoot. Keen. Spawn, you face the tick.
Come on, Spoon.
I am the tick.
No, Spoon.
Oh, gross. Keen. Oh, gross.
If anybody has a giant talking tick for sale, slide in my DMs, please. I need that. I mean, it didn't
Yeah,
say
I've got-
spoon. Feel free to spoon us.
I've got a couple of them, but they're part of my collection. I mean, unopened. Yeah, and it's a real drag because you can see that, like you mentioned, the discoloration. The
Mold injection
torso
plastic.
turns green over the years because it's a different plastic, whatever the plastic was.
It's a
they
different
used.
style of plastic, and it oxidizes.
Yeah.
Happens
And
with the left arms of the original Softhead Ninja Turtles. If you have certain versions of them, if they're left in package, a bacteria will grow on them. Listen, I'm a toy. Esoteric from Czarface was on our show last year. He called me a savant at one point during the show. He was like, "How do you know all this stuff?" I'm like, I've become when you have people on who collect action figures and you say, I am the Larry Bird of action figure collecting, you need to back it up. You can't
Right.
just walk into a room and be like, who is this figure and why is it special? What wave is it from? I can tell you exactly what wave this was. This was wave 22 of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This was 1993. This was one of the second to last lines before they gave us all those random animals. Before we got Monty Moose, Scratch, all.
And there he goes. He'll
Exactly,
Go for
like
20 more minutes.
This is
Okay,
This
good
is what
night,
I know.
everybody.
But back to the tick. Unfortunately, it didn't spoon, but I do want to ask, since we have the ability to, was spoon an ad lib?
No, it was part of the script.
That was written, and your delivery for you have forever
so he's-
changed me with that word.
Well, yeah, you and everybody else, who is a fan of the show. It was an episode where they were trying to come up. Tick decided that he and Arthur needed to come up with battle cries, and Arthur says, "Like what?" And he says, "Cries we emit just before bounding into battle," and then Arthur says, "You mean like not in the face, not in the face?" And he says, "Lex force, chum." And he says, "No, something more like," and he's holding up a spoon from his breakfast cereal, and he sees his reflection in it, and he goes, "More like spoon." And then that's where it was born. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna lie to you. I'm looking at the chat on my left screen, and literally just a barrel of
say spoon.
spoons came through. They want you to
Right.
they want you to cry spoon.
Spoon!
There it is.
Wow, that was
Roll
Evil.
credits.
Evil is afoot. Naughty Spawn, you face the tick. Yes. Oh, my favorite show to do. I got to walk the picket line with a bunch of the Tick family yesterday down at Sony Pictures. For
you
the
brought your
WG
own spoon too, didn't you?
I did. I made one yesterday. I cut out a spoon from a piece of foam core and covered it with aluminum foil. Took it down with me, and I got to walk with Ben Edlund, the creator of the character and the show. Of course, created the comic book, drew the comic book when he was a teenager.
New England Comics, yeah.
Yep.
That's
And
right down the street from my house, ironically enough, where they
Right,
created
yeah.
it.
Well, and that's what's so crazy to me is, here I got a chance to, and the privilege of being on these two shows that were born in kind of sort of roughly the same geographic area, Ninja Turtles with Kevin and Peter up there in New Hampshire and Massachusetts and then Ben in the Boston area as well. So, yeah, I don't know what that was all about, but
Well, I mean, you picked a great
I agree.
region for creations, man. Like, that's just one of those things where it's just amazing how much has come out of here now. Man, what a storied career. Just some of the places you've been and some of the places that randomly you just pop up. Like, I'm thinking back, Lego DC Superheroes, Batman 2, you were Mr. Freeze and you were Mad Hatter
Mass
and
Effect.
Commissioner Gordon, Mass Effect and so forth.
Yeah.
I just kind of want to let you rattle through it as you go, because there's so much to talk about. We could put a 5-part episode together for this one. It's just there's so much amazing. We could be here all night.
Yeah, well, that's basically it for my animation stuff. The last show, well, then I went on and did Transformers Animated, and they brought me on board for that to do Sentinel Prime because they were fans of the Tick, and so they wanted me to do something sort of similar to the Tick. They actually, and I didn't find this out until later, but they designed Sentinel Prime's character after the Tick. Big, blue, monstrous chin. And wanted a similar sort of voice to him as well. And then after that did Mighty Magiswords for Cartoon Network, and that was a lot of fun to work on. But then that was basically it for my cartoon stuff, because in 1993, in fact, the same week that I did my first episode of The Tick, in August of 93, I got my gig over at NBC, which was just a completely fluky thing. They were starting this campaign called Must See TV.
I remember that.
Yeah, and they were looking for a different guy at my agent's office, and my agent said, "Trust me, he'll never do it, but I have somebody standing here in my office," literally I was, who does a similar sort of sound. Let me put him on the phone with you. And so he hands me the phone, and I talked to a guy from NBC, and he said, "So could you just say," and he gave me a sample line to do in this particular style. And I said, "Sure." And so I did it. And he said, "Wow, that sounds exactly like what we're looking for. Can you come over here and try that on a promo at the network?" And I said, "Sure, when?" And he said, "This afternoon." I said, "Sure, I'll be over." So I go over to NBC. They have a drive on for me, go down to the basement, go into PPS2, which is post-production sound, post-production sweetening. And I was a big Danny Dark fan. Now, this is not a name that most people would ever know, but he was a hero of mine because he was the voice of NBC, but he was also voice of Anheuser-Busch and oh, help me out, Townsend. Not Chevrolet, not Ford, not
Dodge?
No. He had car accounts, he had beer accounts. He was voice of Keebler. That's what he was, the announcer on Keebler. And I got a chance to meet him the first time shortly after I came to town when I was doing some Keebler elves. And so Danny was a big hero of mine, but he was the voice of NBC for about like 11 or 12 years at that time. And so I got to sit in his chair at his mic, looking at his monitor for this audition for this thing called Must See TV.
And that was a big deal in the 90s because that was how they launched Friends in ER.
That's exactly right. So what happened was
Must See TV, Thursday nights on NBC.
They ended up liking what I did and stuck it on the air that night. And then I ended up becoming the comedy voice for NBC and all the Must See TV stuff for 16 years.
That was a huge piece, too, to NBC.
Huge.
Massive.
Oh my gosh.
Like a massive campaign. Like,
from
why
the
would you
early
walk away
90s,
from that?
From the early 90s, all the way through the, mid 2000s, basically. I mean, NBC just owned the market, and especially on Thursday nights, and so, I got a chance I launched Friends in 1995. Started with Seinfeld, Frasier, Friends, Mad About You, all those shows, all the way up through 30 Rock and The Office and Community in 2009. And so I voiced all those promos, all their comedy promos for 16 years, and then also voiced the Tonight Show promos for Jay Leno every night for those 16 years. And that was like the best gig I ever had in my entire life, because it really combined the best parts of what I enjoyed about my radio career with the best parts of what I enjoyed about my animation career and my sort of generic voiceover stuff. Brought them together, and they really let me play a ton down at NBC with some of those early promos, like when I was doing stuff for Just Shoot Me and all those shows. They would just let me go, wild and crazy, and on some of them got a chance to really sort of ham it up and do character stuff in those promos. So that was just such a highlight for me. And like I was saying at the beginning of the show, my parents met working at NBC, at 30 Rock in New York in the, like 1951. And my dad's goal, he was the boss of the Pages. He was the manager of the tour division. But his dream was to become a network announcer for NBC, where he was working.
That's a prestigious role. People now, you young kids in the crowd do not understand how big 4, 5, and 7 were when Townsend was younger, when Chris was younger, when I was younger, before the massive cable expansion.
When you say hold on, Bill. When you say 4, 5, and 7, you talking about channels 4, 5, and 7?
4, 5, and 7 for us.
Okay,
that's what it was.
It's 3, 5, and 8 for me.
3, 5, and 8 for Townsend. Smallz. What was it
Cleveland?
For
In Cleveland.
me, it was 4, 5, 7, and 13.
Okay. Well, yeah, Channel 13 as well was Fox, actually. Correction. But it's just amazing, like, how impactful that was. Like, I'll tell you right now, I'm thinking back to it, and the first interaction I had with The Office before I really knew what it was actually one of your promos when the show first launched. And I remember sitting down and watching that first episode and really getting, and I say it all the time, it is the greatest love story ever told. That show is just a love letter to what sitcom is supposed to be.
That's right.
And just the happy ending for Holly and Michael, the happy ending for Angela and Dwight. I cried. What? And,
That's
and
great.
it was all, and I had no idea until I started doing my research that you did those promos. And I was...
That's wild. It's one of those things, like, every time we have a voice actor on the show, and we go through like everything they do, you realize how much they're in that you don't even realize.
Yeah.
Right. Those must-see TV ads, I remember you raised me effectively.
Yeah, you got me hooked on shows,
from
man.
Ninja Turtles to Community.
Yeah, and it's...
That voice is
where we
ingrained in the back of my head.
Must-see TV. Thursday nights, NBC. And we have, ironically enough, next show... We're friends with Arif S. Kinchin, and he's coming on, and he's been on some wild stuff, and he's been on before. Like, he's our first 2-time guest, may I add, besides Steve, who will be on next show too. And it's you start really diving.
Steve who?
Stevie Oaks, the Peter Griffin cosplayer you met.
All right. Okay.
But you realize when you really start diving into someone and you really start doing your research, like, man, we started this script 3 months ago. Yeah, about 3 months ago. About 3 months ago, we started doing our research. Like, that's how much time that we put into things because, yeah, we know our stuff, but this isn't the fake it till you make it hour with Billy and Chris. This is, we want to, we don't want to just, like I said, we don't want to just talk about Ninja Turtles. There's so much more to your career. There's so much more depth. There's so much more, and these are the stories that needed to be heard. This is the conversation that needed to be had because, 3 hours of Ninja Turtles is great, but how often do you do that? Probably often.
Right.
So I want to dive more into NBC because there was so much to it. There was suddenly Susan, Caroline in the City. There was Seinfeld. There was Friends. There was The Fugitive. The Andy Griffith Show at one point came back. Tell us about NBC. Like, give us the inner workings because 30 Rock is I call things as a toy collector a holy grail, but the production, the radio guy, the wanting to be in production in general guy, that is a holy grail to everybody. Like, I'm obsessed with Saturday Night Live. Like, mid-'70s to early '90s, Andy Kaufman, Will Ferrell. I could just go on. Eddie Murphy, everything like that. Lorne Michaels was my I'm going to get up again at 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock when I'm a kid so I can watch something funny. And these are the stories that need to be told to her because NBC is such a juggernaut, and it does not need to be lost on people how important that is and how huge that is.
Yeah, well, this is back in the glory days of, linear television, long before we had all this streaming stuff that we've got now. Long before we had the internet. Listen, I remember when I first did my very first episode of The Tick, and it was just me and Mickey Dolenz in the studio together. And, of course, it was surreal to me thinking that, not only am I working with Mickey, but he's my sidekick. I'm the superhero and he's my sidekick. That is, like, too weird for me. But after we finished recording, I asked him, I said, so what are you doing now? And thinking he was going to, talk about touring and playing music and stuff like that. And he just looks at me and he says, the web. I said, the what? He said, the web, man. I said, I don't know what you mean. He said, the internet? And I didn't know what it was. You got to remember, this is August of 1993. and I didn't know it. And so he tried explaining to me what the internet was, and imagine trying to explain that to somebody who's never heard of it. Well, now of course, duh. But
Mickey was
back
a man
then
ahead
it
of
was
his time, though.
he so was, and he's so into science.
Still
He's
is.
such a brilliant guy, and he yeah. So he's the one that turned me on to that, and I went out and bought my first computer and got online. But back in those days, yeah, I mean, this is back in the days of really the heyday, I think, of sort of the last heyday of linear television, and back when NBC really was the juggernaut once they got that must-see TV thing rolling, because they'd already started it with Seinfeld. I mean, Seinfeld, was just getting going then, and then when they started the must-see TV campaign, that's when everything just exploded and took off.
Right.
I mean, I've got a cover of the Hollywood Reporter that shows the top 10 shows of whatever week that was in 1996 or something, 97 or something, and they're all but one are NBC shows. I mean, it's insane how domineering and how dominant they were back then. But for me, it was just the greatest gift that I could imagine, because I mean, it really was like, we got to remember this is before digital, like we know it.
As the
when
cable
everybody's
expansion was beginning, yeah.
well, but it's before. I mean, now everybody's got a laptop and can record stuff on their computers at home. Well, we didn't have those back then,
Right.
and so the way production was, just like in my day in radio, in production, it was all razor blades and grease pencils and quarter-inch tape, and so
Make sure
back
you're
in
precise cutting.
1993 and 94. While the audio was being recorded on a digital 24-track machine in another room, everything was still analog. And so you really had to know your stuff. You had to have your timing down. And everything was, they were shuttling big machines back and forth and back and forth. And so to me, it was like being on the radio and in an animation session all at once. And I'm telling you, that was just the biggest gift that I ever got. And these people over the course of that 16 years, all the people that I worked with at NBC over those years became like family to me. I mean, NBC really was my family. And I would drive down to the studio in Burbank, and I had a parking spot on the Midway, just a couple of slots down from Jay Leno.
Wow.
And yeah.
So you got to see Jay Leno's fun cars every day.
Every single
Put that on my resume.
every single night that I went in, and he drove a different car, because he would, drive to his garage up by the Burbank airport, pick out a different car, every night, drive it, down Hollywood Way and to work every night. So was always fascinating, and being the promo voice of the Tonight Show. I got to meet him a bunch and take friends and family to the Tonight Show and stuff, and then give them a little nickel tour around where kind of my domain was and where I worked, and take them out to the Midway and show them the Jay's cars and stuff. And those are just magical days. They were just magical times for me, and so I mean, I was very lucky to have lasted for 16 years at that network. I figure I probably said NBC more than just about any other announcer, other than maybe Don Pardo, who was there for 50 plus years.
55, right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. And, and so that's, I mean, again, I keep saying it, but what a gift that gig was. Yeah.
It sounds it. Now, I'm sure 16 years, I mean, we can go all over the place here, but I'm sure there has to be some fun side stories amongst the years, but it sounds like NBC would be the most interesting of those. Any just good side stories, any great memories that beyond just being that voice? And again, guys, if you don't see the relevance of this, please go back, watch some old stuff on YouTube, listen to Townsend announced these commercials. You can find probably all these commercials on YouTube, and they are.
There are a lot of the promos that are on YouTube. Yeah,
and it's
then when
beautiful because you can go back and find anything nowadays. And speaking
Pretty
of the
much.
webs, like we said, Mickey was ahead of his time, and
Yeah.
it's we're here, technically in the same room. You know, you're in Los Angeles, I'm in Canton, he's in Derry, but we're all in the same room technically because of the innovations of the internet, and it's allowed those of us as kids to really connect to our childhood in a way I don't think any of us ever expect. I mean, I expected it because in 1987 in the first grade, I created the House of the Future as my science project, and I said eventually we're going to be able to control our homes with smart things, or I don't remember what I called it, and I said the Dick Tracy watch is going to be a real thing. Well, $800 later, I got one sitting on my wrist.
right?
You know?
Yeah. So bizarre, you know, to be on your phone and be doing a FaceTime chat with somebody, you know, halfway across the world.
Amazing.
What we can do now is really nuts. You know, but I'll tell you, one of the downsides to it for me, just in my career, has been that, you know, those were the glory days of being able to go down to the network and rub elbows with all the, you know, folks that I got to work with and actually see them face to face, be in the same room, get to chat, you know, during a break and stuff like that. You know, then it got to the point where, you know, we all started putting in, you know, the little studios in our homes and in our closets like this and working from home. And at first you thought, wow, this is, talk about the holy grail. I get to, you know, be doing my network promo stuff from my closet. If people saw this, they'd laugh. It's laughable, you know, but it seemed so cool at the time. Then after a while of working that way and realizing, wow, you know what, I'm starting to kind of like miss people.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of want to go down to the studio. I kind of want to go down to the network and be down there, you know, never mind the traffic. I'll live with it, you know, but I want to be rubbing elbows with folks and saying, hi, how are you in person, not over the line like this.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and it's one of those things where, you know, I've had my fair share of health issues thanks to cancer, and my doctors have recommended that I work from home. And, you know, don't get me wrong, it's nice. I work in here every day. This is my office, and I can do both jobs at the same time. Amazon, please don't fire me. But at the same time, I miss the opportunity, like, and I'll give you a fun side story here really quick. The reason I know him is because I met him when he was working as DI specialist for Best Buy, and I was a traveling market trainer for Logitech. I would go around to all the Best Buys in the New England area, and I would train them on our products, on Ultimate Ears, on Logitech G. I was on the test team for a lot of our products. So, like, the keyboard sitting in front of me, I had a hand in designing. Like,
wow,
the Logitech G915 has my fingerprints all over it because I requested a low profile keyboard. I was like, gamers want something with a faster travel time, especially for competitions. And it got there, and Smallz and I started to realize that we had similar interests, and here we are 6-7 years later, and like family. But I miss, like you, I miss that camaraderie where I get to see people in person. I make sure that, and I say this to our team here at A Bunch of Nerds who helps us run the brand show, I say to them all the time, you guys are always welcome at the office. Just call me before you come down. He drives 90 minutes one way, 90 minutes the other. We're driving down to Pennsylvania to see our social media manager this summer sometime, you know, and I agree. Like, don't get me wrong. It's great to do all this from here. It's nice to not have to worry about the politics of the office, but in a role like yours, and I mean, I've done some voice acting. I've done a couple small games. I hate recording in my house.
Yeah.
I do not want to record in my house. I want to record.
Yeah.
I want to see you. I want to be I want to be directed in front of me. And I'm going to be honest with you, since COVID, I haven't taken a role because of that. I've been offered a few things like, hey, do you want to read a Mother Goose? No. Why not? Because I can't do it in front of you. I want you to direct me. I had the privilege of working with the great Dave Grossman, who is known throughout the game industry for his work on Secret of Monkey Island. I had to do it virtually with Dave, and it just broke my heart because Dave was a guy that I loved and always wanted to work with. And I finally met Dave a couple of years ago, and I said to him, I'm like, it was such a pleasure to work with you, but, you know, like, it's not the same. Like, going back to Comic-Cons and so forth and hearing those stories, like, you're hearing my story, but you're hearing my story. Like, I'm gonna see you in a
Right.
few months, and we're gonna chat, I'm sure, and Chris will be there, and we'll chat, and it'll be great. But at the same time, I don't know, there's just something about that in-person opportunity to take a photo with someone, to shake hands, to have a conversation and truly hear, the inflections and vibrations of a voice, man, that you really, you just can't, you can't
replicate it.
thank you. You took the words right out of my mouth. I was trying to say it. I couldn't say it. We could sit here and replicate it, but it's just not the same. It's not the same feeling. It's not as good. Like it's better to be like, man, you guys saved my life, but hey, you're 3 feet in front of me and I'm able to say it.
Yeah.
And I miss it,
so
man.
yeah, so I've appreciated every gig I've ever gotten, but I have noticed that, over the years, like when NBC let me go in 2009, I ended up over at ABC doing the similar sort of thing. I was over there for about 5+ years. And then they let me go, and I ended up over at Fox for a year or two, and I was doing the same thing over there, and then doing a bunch of syndicated promo work too. Was the voice, the daily promo voice for what most recently was live with Kelly and Ryan. But I was doing that since it was live with Regis and Kelly, and then live with Kelly, and then live with Kelly and Michael, and then live with Kelly again, and then live with Kelly and Ryan. And then they finally replaced me with a gal a little over a year ago. So, yeah, so that was essentially effectively the end of my VO career. It's not to say that I couldn't work anymore. I still audition every so often, but I'm the old guy in this business. I'm not the young pup I was when I came to town in '84 at the age of 30. And so, it's just the nature of the beast. You get to a certain point in your life where you realize, yeah, you know what? It's populated by a whole bunch of youngsters right now.
Yeah,
and
like
it's the way it's
statesman of network VO.
Yeah, but
right.
That's a great thing because, yes, a tremendous 40-year career. I will be the first to say that. Like I said, some of the greatest voices ever. I would say Michaelangelo and the Tick being the most pronounced, defining roles. But, hearing more about must-see TV, like, here's Tick and here's Michaelangelo, but here's must-see TV knowing that now. Like, knowing everything behind it. And,
absolutely.
Knowing a lot of the things that you helped launch. Like, I'm sure for a lot of the chat, that's a holy shit moment. That is a total holy shit moment.
It was for me. In real time.
Yeah, you popped Smallz. That's amazing. That's very hard to do, but it's amazing to hear those stories. And this is again, talking off air. We were talking about how, it's one of those things where, you really dive into someone when you have a conversation, you don't bill it as an interview. It's just why, just dude, talk it like we build this for 2 hours and our audience is still here. We're 28 minutes over. Let someone tell their no. Don't worry, trust me. We don't have to cut. We can go as long as we want if we wanted to. But we're not going to take your whole night, I promise. But it's one of those things where you let someone start telling their story, and the things that come from that story, and the stories that are within that story. It's the greatest side. It's the greatest side quest of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And again, what do you think, chat? Must-see TV might have been, like, don't get me wrong, I like Michaelangelo and I love the Tick, two of my favorite superheroes, especially because they're New England related. But I think that must-see TV story was probably the coolest story of the night, and I want to hear more about that too.
Oh, sweet, yeah. Well, there's really not too much more to tell. There's
got to be a funny moment that happened, like backstage or something like that.
Oh, dude, you know what? I'm sure there were, and you're kind of putting me on the spot because I can't. I was like, nothing's immediately coming to mind. Where I'm thinking, oh yeah, well this happened or that happened. I mean, yeah, there was stuff all the time, and there were kerfuffles all the time. I'll tell you one of the things that really blew my mind as I started working there was so every year they do this thing called upfronts, and NBC does it at Radio City Music Hall every May. And it's where they trot out all their big stars and their new shows and their returning shows that are coming up in the fall. And it's where they sell the bulk of the advertising for the rest of the year. And so they would use me to voice the presentations that they would air or that they would show at this, this big this big circus, this big dog and pony show at Radio City Music Hall. And I remember they would book me for the whole weekend before that Monday morning that upfronts were happening in New York. And I had to be on call to announce the presentations that were going to be shown on Monday morning. And they would typically get sent to New York. The finals would get sent to New York overnight, late Sunday, very early Monday morning. And I remember thinking how crazy it was that I was doing all these presentations. Like I would voice, I don't, maybe 8 or 9 different presentations for comedies. But knowing that only like 3 of them were actually going to get picked up for the fall, but they wouldn't make the decision about which of these 8 or 9 shows was actually going to get the green light to go on air in the fall until like that Sunday night, like midnight. And so I used to think, this is crazy. I'm voicing all these promos for these presentations for these pilots, but only 3 or 4 of these 8 or 9 presentations that I voiced are actually going to get shown tomorrow morning in New York City at Radio City Music Hall, which means that 5 or 6 of them aren't going to get shown, which means that those producers, those creators, those writers, those actors who put together their blood, sweat, and tears into these pilots are going to get a call late Sunday night, early Monday morning saying, sorry, you were not greenlighting yours. It's not going to air. After they put all this into it. And I would actually voice these presentations with them still not knowing, they hadn't decided yet which of these shows was actually going to get promoted the next morning and then go on the air in the fall. And I remember seeing that and thinking, man, this is a side of this business that I just had no idea was this cutthroat, was this brutal, but that's the business side of it. And it seems so, well, at the time, and I'm sure it wasn't, these were not casual decisions, but these were tough decisions that the programmers at the network had to make, and calculated decisions they were making late at night on that Sunday night, saying, okay, we're going to go with this one, this one, this one, and this one, and those other 5, call them and tell them we don't need them anymore. And I thought, man, this is just a brutal side of this business. I don't know that I could live like that. That'd be rough.
That is vicious, man. And I look back at it, and a great example of this is, do you know the story of The Walking Dead and how it ended up on AMC?
No.
So like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, a very wildly popular comic book, all in black and white, same idea. Robert Kirkman really channeled early Frank Miller's Ronin, and he channeled very early Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the violence, the story, but I'm sure you've seen at least the synopsis of The Walking Dead. A virus gets out of the CDC, and causes a global pandemic and literally just destroys the universe. I think a lot of people thought that was going to happen with COVID, and there was a frightening point when we got to that 1 million number, rest in peace to those we've lost, that I even thought that, shit, we're fucked. And, thankfully we were somehow able to come out the other side through people kind of, bounding together and getting together and being good to one another. Listen to that message, my friends. Be good to one another. But the story at hand here is that HBO passed on the show because they didn't think anybody would watch it. Next to Mad Men, it's AMC's most watched, most viewed, and most socially relevant show.
Yeah.
And you think about that, and you going back to what you were saying about those late night decisions that were made. Imagine having a pilot put together. Imagine being Robert Kirkman and having something that is now spun into 3 separate shows. You have Rise of the Walking Dead. Negan has his own spinoff now, and you have The Walking Dead. And imagine that comic book ended 4 or 5 years ago, and it is still wildly popular with the Gen Pop audience. Like, and this,
Oh, yeah.
this goes back to the Tick, as we got an Amazon Prime special in 2016. You know, and I know you were a part of that. You were Midnight in that.
Right.
And you look at the nostalgia that comes there. Again, back to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You just voiced Michaelangelo in Shredder's Revenge, best Ninja Turtles game of all time. May I add? Dottie MU and those guys did such a fantastic job. And it's actually, and this is a fun side story for that too. That's our office game night game. When everybody gets together and plays office game night, that's what we play is Shredder's Revenge.
Shredder's Revenge.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, of all the Ninja Turtle video games that have come out, the games, the TMNT games that have come out over the years, this is the first one where they actually used us voices on it.
Yeah, and there's a copy of Turtles in Time sitting right there, and then obviously the arcade one up. But it's the most authentic. It's the most relevant and authentic to the original show. Like those guys, Retroware, I think did it. I forget the name of the company, but it's, man. Like, I can't put it down, and, like, they just announced that Usagi is coming in for DLC. I'm assuming you're voicing Usagi?
I'm not. No, I forget the guy's name, but it's
What?
Usagi from one of the other iterations of Turtles.
Well, I need to make some phone calls, pardon me.
Please.
You did Michaelangelo. Why wouldn't they bring you into? Well, I'm sure you're doing VO for the DLC for Michaelangelo. No, new lines, anything?
Not so far. No, we just did the lines we did was about a year and a half ago. It was in September of, not last year, but the year before.
Yeah.
That we recorded those lines. Yeah, and they had me do just a couple of characters. I did Mikey. I did
Rat King.
I don't remember whether I did Rat King. Maybe it was Rat King.
It was you. 100% it was you. It was one
okay,
line,
so then I did Rat King. But then I also did this character Razar, which I had completely forgotten
you did
that
one
I did.
episode in season 10 as Toka and Razar. You were Razar in that episode.
Yeah, and I had no recollection of that. And so when I showed up at that session, they gave me the Razar lines to do, and I'm like, I don't think I did that character. And they said, "Oh no, you did it."
Yeah.
I said, "Well, if I have no recollection of it, and I have no idea what he sounded
And
like."
they
and they
made
said,
figures of it too.
"Yeah, they did." And I saw
fucking
one this
episode?
past weekend at Contropolis that looked great. It was a NECA one. It was
Yeah.
crazy great.
Well-
and so they played me the reference of my voice that I did for Razar, and I said, "Oh, okay, yeah, that was me." But it was a voice that I hadn't remembered doing. It was a much
Yeah.
deeper kind of voice. Yeah, so I did that for the video game and stuff. But
That's my favorite. That's actually my favorite boss fight with the burps and everything. It's just so funny. It's but yeah, they brought after the wild success of TMNT2, and now people looking back at it and hating it. Secret of the Ooze is my favorite of the movies. You guys can fight me about that. But they took Toka and Razar and put him into an episode because they needed to make merchandise. So.
Right. We got toys to sell.
Exactly. Well, yeah, and Playmates is
Right.
brilliant. I want to interview those guys someday. That's a dream. So I can be like, why did you love me so much as a child to make things that you know I would traditionally love?
Fall in love with you, right?
I know. Again, that love never died. Like, yeah, it tapered off for a little bit, but it came right back. Rush of emotions, having kids and getting married and having a family and having a wife who supports you being a total, lunar idiot. But
Yeah, right.
it was one episode, and it was in the last season. It was in season 10, and I remember reading the treatment that we did for this and being like, he was Razar. Fuck, I didn't even remember that. But
I didn't either.
So chat. I know Smallz hasn't seen this yet, but what I'm going to refer to this is that this was a canon event. Everything was made canon through Ninja Turtles. Like Bebop and Rocksteady were in the original cartoons, or they were in the cartoons. They were made for the cartoons by Playmates, voiced by Cam and Barry, and they were not in the original comic books. Neither was a certain gentleman who I think is the greatest animated villain of all time. Changed my mind, but it's just amazing how everything. What I'm getting at, to get back to The Walking Dead and everything, is it's amazing how everything comes together. And how that one decision can truly benefit someone. And I mean, look at this, man. You've given us 40 years of your life, and it has benefited the world, and it has brought you to amazing heights. Like, you went to the moon and you never came back. You just started carving Chairman into the side of the moon and just, owned it.
Chairface Chippendale.
Chairface.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm on 3 hours of sleep. It was Prime Day
Cha.
this week.
It says Cha in the moon.
Yeah, and it's still and every time I look up at the moon, I say to my wife, I'm like, why doesn't it say Cha? She
Right.
laughs at me. She goes, shut up, Billy. Stop making references. Because Smallz, would you agree that I talk in references often?
That's all you ever speak in.
Well, not tonight. But, all right, guys, we're going to wrap the show up. Let's open it up for questions for Townsend. Guys, no more brand bucks. Don't use them. Snacks, you can feel free to gift the chat as many subs as you'd like. We have a joke here that one of our longtime followers who's been with us since the beginning, he likes to joke that we exploit him. He has gifted over 180 subscriptions, which give our viewers extra perks and so forth to our viewers over the years. He has donated to every charity that we have ever asked for donations for. We've worked with the NAACP, we've worked with the Colon Cancer Foundation, Rescue Dogs Rock. I'm extorting you, Smallz, just for the record, or Snacks, in front of the Tick.
I was saying, are you doing it? What?
Maybe I can get him to extort you in the Tick voice, but he has done so much for this channel to make us successful and to help us grow and build what we do. Like, I say this before I extort him, and jokingly, he has been the cornerstone of our community. So he's one of those guys. So if the Tick wants to extort you, he can. I give him permission.
What do you mean extort?
It's an inside joke. Every time we make that joke,
because you've lost me.
Okay.
I'm trying to follow you, but
he will gift subscriptions. It's a tier, the $5 tier of our subscriptions to our viewers, and I'll show you off air just so you can see what it is. But we actually have an emote being made of him because there's a hashtag that goes around every episode, and now it's popping up in our chat. Don't ban snacks, and it's become an inside joke. That's his screen name is Snacks, and he is the cornerstone of our community, and he's always giving and donating and doing great things for us. So,
but you can't ban Snacks. We'll die of hunger.
Oh my God. All right, Snacks. Now you're legitimately you're welcome. Oh. And he's just there he goes. But back to conversation here. This is just we have a really great small community here. People are just phenomenal, and we are so blessed to do what we do. But guys, since Snacks starting to give away 5 subscriptions, let's open it up to questions. Snacks, you get the first question just for those gifts. Thank you. I'm going to play the Jeopardy theme for him.
There you go. There it is. And I do say Jim is it. Uh-huh. And you get that's the other part. Okay.
Oh my
And
goodness.
it
You need to clip that too, Zara. Zara, legitimately, if you did not clip Townsend thinking during the Jeopardy theme, I'm going to be very upset. He's got nothing. Okay, Smallz, what do you got? I'll lead off with Smallz since Snacks has nothing.
Honestly, I'm just enamored with your career. I really don't have any other questions. I just love hearing you talk.
Yeah, anytime you want to come back,
right.
be our guest. We do curated movie nights and show watch alongs. So if you ever want to come on for one of those and come and hang out in the Discord community and just be human and have some fun. You are, as we told Renee, as we've told, except for I think one guest who really had a very negative attitude.
What?
Yeah, it was very shocking.
It's not possible.
It was terrible. It was awful.
Oh, boy.
But we have told everyone we would love to have you back. We would love to have you, a part of this community. Come back on again. You got something coming up. Hey guys, I got this new thing coming. Come on and talk
Yeah.
about it. We like repeat guests here at the Brand Show. We have other shows. We have a new show launching called Nerd Fight, where people argue about topics politely. If you ever wanted to do that
It's not
show,
going to be polite, you know
it's
that.
if you ever wanted to do that show, you're more than welcome. Any of our shows. And wait, I have to deliver a message for Zero.
I've been waiting for
go
a
ahead.
place to jump in and do it.
Go ahead, just jump in anytime. You know the routine around here. We're
But
shotgun.
I just didn't want to interrupt. I'm sorry. So
He's
our
so
social media guy, Jay, the 0 Hour Hero in chat, wanted to let you know that he had a picture of the Tick yelling spoon at his desk when he was in the army.
Oh, no kidding, really?
Yeah.
Big fan.
Keen.
Like I have to find another one of these and send him one. That's how much he loves the Tick.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, Tick merchandise is getting harder and harder to find.
I got lucky. I found him, Bullet Head, and Chairface. They're all sitting in my friend's shop. I have to go pick them up. But he is a big Tick fan, and he had extras. And I said to him, I'm like,
Wow.
I mean, for that first wave, there's the Bounding Tick, Fluttering Arthur, Post Striking. Well, they changed his name, but God, what? Who was the bat? I forget his name now.
Well, that was Deflator Mouse.
Deflator Mouse. There we go. But
it depends on which version you're talking about. If you're talking about our animated version, it was Deflator Mouse. But
Yeah.
the first live action version, it was Batmanuel.
Batman, yes, and then he has Sewer Urchin too, and then the Human Bullet and Manny. I mean, there's only 10 figures in this line. I could run this line. This is me we're talking about here. I could do this in 3 days. I purchased the entire original WWF Hasbro line, 86 figures in under 9 months.
Oh my God!
Because I stopped collecting everything else I was collecting to find them. So if I wanted to find all these, it would be like that, and my wife would be like, "How much did you spend?" Well, I think the Tick overall is getting popular again anyway. People are starting to get nostalgic for it, and I'm sure you've seen a lot of the work that's done with it. Actually, a local guy here, a good friend of mine, Ian Chase Nichols, has been doing a lot of the art for
I
it.
love Ian.
Oh, you know Ian?
I love Ian. I used to see Ian down at San Diego Comic-Con every year. We'd sit in the New England Comics booth together.
Yep. He's going to be there this year again.
And sign autographs. Well, I don't think New England Comics is having a booth. I talked to Ben yesterday, and he said they're not, which I was bummed to hear because I would go down there. They'd invite me down every year, and I'd hang out in the New England Comics booth. And Ben would come down and do some drawings and sign autographs. Ian would come down and do some drawings and sign autographs and stuff. Ian's great. I love his work.
He's wonderful.
In fact, my favorite line, the "Don't count weasels before you don't count your weasels before they pop." Dink, I had him do as a drawing for me, like it was a cover, a comic cover, and it's one of my treasures that I've got on my treasure shelf.
Oh, wow. I've probably seen it. Him and I are friends on Facebook. We're not related, ironically enough, having the same last name. But he has done so much art for me over the years. I actually have, to my right, I'm a big He-Man fan. He did a beautiful Merman sketch for me. Huge Merman fan. And he did that sketch for me. I guess now I'm going to have him add a Tick. He'll be at Rhode Island Comic Con too. I'm sure.
Oh, is he going to be there? Oh, good. I haven't
there
seen
every
Ian
year.
in a while. I'm looking forward to seeing him. That's great.
Absolutely. I'll have to have him do me a Tick for you to sign because
Yeah.
I've already talked to him. I said I'm coming with a stack this high to see you guys. I'm sneaking in on a Friday because it's the slowest day, and I'm like, well, I'm just gonna start throwing money at people and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
All right, guys. Any other questions before we wrap this episode? Come on, someone bring something out. You guys have earned this. You sat through almost 3 hours of us talking about some of the most, I would say, best episode ever.
Inane stuff.
We have gone on some wild trails here, and this one has. I will never forget that. Don't get me wrong. I will never forget any episode of my show. I've been grateful to. Don't worry, Snacks. It'll be up on the YouTube on Friday.
Snacks. Snacks. Oh, I think of Snacks like I think of Speak in the Tick. It's like Speak. He's a capybara is what he is. And Tick thinks he's a dog.
Yeah, I remember. I
World's-
remember, and he's like, "Oh, look
world's
at
largest-
the little puppy."
World's largest rodent. Yeah.
I will
Snacks.
say, I think, not even a question, just more of an observation. I said this to Billy yesterday during a pre-show meeting. I feel like the Tick and his mannerisms and just the way he carries himself was and still is the archetype of the character Captain Quark from the Ratchet and Clank series.
Yeah.
If you're familiar with just like down to like the chin, the way he carries
Yep.
himself. It's
Yep.
like the Crimson Shade from the Fairly Odd Parents and Captain Quark
Yeah.
had a blue suited baby.
Right. Right.
You know, and you look at the Tick, and you look at a few things about him that are fun. Like, again, let's just pick this figure up again. Like, he kind of looks like your prototypical superhero, and then you're like, who the fuck wants to make a Lyme disease carrying little shit a superhero? And he turns into this amazing thing, and he's like, so he's jacked like Superman. He's got the big chin. You know, like he's your prototypical superhero, and I don't know much the history of how Ben created the character. I'm gonna have to get into that and buy some graphic novels. I'm sure I have a few Tick issues somewhere, but like you look at him and he's like all these things, and then he just has a random ass name like the Tick, and it's like, what the shit is this? And I gotta tell you, the TV show is. And I mean, I like a lot of old cartoons. Like, I love Dino Riders. Like, I love Silverhawks. I love Thundercats, Turtles, all that stuff. But the Tick, like, as an adult, it's even better. Like, same with Batman the Animated Series. Batman the Animated Series, I never understood as a kid.
Right.
And I never understood the impact that Mark Hamill made and that Kevin Conroy made. And when I met Kevin, I had such a beautiful conversation with him about this, and he was like, he said to me, he goes, you know, you weren't supposed to understand it, you were just supposed to enjoy it, but as an adult you're supposed to understand the lower third of this entire thing and the stories behind it. And it was just amazing, like just understanding what noir was and what, you know, good storytelling was, and multi-layering of stories, and how to add a subplot. And man, Batman the Animated Series, like, I'm not a huge Batman person outside of Frank Miller's Dark Knight, but that story, and to this day, and anybody can argue with me, Hamill and Conroy are the definitive Bat and Joker combination. Like, yes, Nicholson and Keaton, live action, unreal. Cesar Romero, unbelievable. Adam West, amazing. Christian Bale. I could sit here and argue this, but my Batman is Kevin Conroy. My Michaelangelo is Townsend Coleman. My Leonardo is Cam Clark. My Raphael is Rob Paulson. My April O'Neil is Renee Jacobs. And my Donatello is Barry Gordon. My Tick is Townsend Coleman. It's not Patrick Warburton.
Thank you.
Show was fun, but sorry, man. There are just certain people who step into things that will never be touched, and they're talking about it in chat. They're talking about how good Dino Riders was and how wild it was that you did some side voices on here. They're agreeing about everything I just said, and they're having a full-on discussion about this. Like, there is legitimately a full-on serious discussion going on in the chat during the show. I'll have to show you the replay. I'll send you the replay once it goes up later tonight.
Yeah.
And these people are just, you know, they love it. And man, it's, you don't understand all this as a kid, but as you grow up, you know, it's one of those things, you know, and you kind of get what it meant to you and what it still means. And again, on behalf of myself and this whole community, thank you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Oh my gosh, you guys! I thank you. Thanks for having me.
Come anytime.
Having me over to play tonight. This has just been a real honor and a real privilege and a real pleasure.
Well, listen,
So,
anytime
appreciate
you
it.
want to come back and you want to bring anybody with you, we will tell these stories over and over again.
Okay.
I'm sure there will be. We're working on a trivia night episode. It's something I haven't told him about yet, but I've been quietly working on a trivia night episode with past guests.
What?
Yeah, this is for season 3.
Okay.
But we had talked about having Kevin Munroe on for this episode because he was so enamored by your work. Unfortunately, he wasn't available. Kevin was our today is the 1 year anniversary of this show. We launched this show last year on July 12th. And Kevin Munroe, who directed the 2007 TMNT, was our first guest. And the stories,
that's right. You were mentioning that.
The stories he told and the love that he felt for the original Turtles and how he wanted to be authentic to the original, but find his own path and create a new villain, and just the after effect of how vicious people were that Shredder wasn't in it. And I'm like, listen, I saw it for the first time 3 days before we saw it, and like actually watched it the full way through. I think every other time I've seen it, I was trying to put my kid to sleep, or I was tired or something or whatever, and I never got through it. And I watched it and I was like, yeah, I can see a lot of the callbacks to the original here and the love. And if you watch his Michaelangelo, he makes Michaelangelo a party clown. Tell me you wouldn't have done that in the 87 series.
Right.
It's Michaelangelo to a T, and I encourage watching it. It was fun. I enjoyed it personally. But guys, we have officially gone an hour over because these stories just got so good.
Hour over. Oh my gosh.
And guys, I am sure Townsend will be back. I think we're gonna have to plan a watch along of the original episodes of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, those first 7. And we'll plan something for hopefully during the holidays. We'll let Townsend pick a charity, and you guys can donate to the charity of his choosing. And we'll do something like that. What do you guys think, if he is willing?
Oh, that sounds awesome, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. And we'll put that together, and we'll get back to you guys. We'll announce it on a later show. Snacks is now talking about his Burger King Kids Club Ninja Turtles video collections.
Oh, that's great.
I can pull those out too.
I get to sign those at so many Comic-Cons. I love seeing that stuff.
All right, guys. We're going to go to our final break of the night. We're going to wrap up with Townsend here, and we will see you guys in just 3 minutes to wrap up the show. Say your goodbyes now, guys.
Well, I'll tell you what. You two, you got to do this with me, okay? On 3, we're going to do a turtle power. You ready?
You ready, Smallz?
1. Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Turtle power! Greatest moment of my life. We'll be right back.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Holy shit! Best episode ever?
Yeah, I'd say
Next
so.
to Kevin? Like, right there?
Yeah, that's definitely top 3 for sure.
Wow. Hold on, I need a minute.
Every time you do that, I think the chair is just gonna go. And we're just gonna see like you're gonna end up on like a wiki feet within the next 20 minutes.
So, guys, we talked about it off. We talked about it off air, and I am happy to announce Townsend Coleman will be back. We're not sure when.
I would listen to him read the dictionary as the tick.
I think that can be arranged. That was amazing. We're gonna bring Townsend back. We're gonna bring Renee back. For those of you in the chat, all right, listen, I'm just going to say this out loud and I'm going to exploit snacks again. Do you guys want a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 7 episode watch along of the original season in our Discord channel? I need you guys to start. I need you guys to throw some emotes in the chat. I need you to do something. I need some clarification here, guys.
Oh, you see this guy? See this guy? Number 1 bullshit guy. He do the wee woo.
I need it. And I am happy to announce I'm either going to plan a tick or a Ninja Turtles watch along, or both. And it has to happen now. Townsend Coleman is the greatest of all time. That just happened.
Mm-hmm.
And hold on. Let's have our victory moment. So get your victory pose ready, okay? I'm gonna play the Turtles complete level, and then we've now turtle powered with Renee Jacobs and Townsend Coleman. We have 3 to go. So let's do this. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Brand show power.
I can't yell. I have a 6-year-old asleep in the other room.
Shit. Well, guys, that is going to do it for the season premiere of the Brand Show. I couldn't have asked for a better first episode of season 2. What a way to kick off this season. My God, you guys, the best audience in the world. This is the flagship show of a bunch of nerds. We are the Brand Show. You can follow me on Instagram at Billy Nichols Brand. You can follow me on TikTok at ABON Unboxed, UNBOXD. Check us out on YouTube, youtube.com/a bunch of nerds. And don't forget to follow us right here on Twitch at twitch.tv/The Brand Show Live. Tonight's episode has been brought to you by CollectorCon 2023 in Cleveland, Ohio, hosted at the Exo Sports Center. Make sure to check them out on Facebook. And don't forget to check out our sponsors, Ringside Collectibles, where you can use code THEBRAND to save 10%. Figures Toy Company, where you can use code Billy Nichols Brand to save 10%. The good folks over at Prep You Products, where you can save 15% with the code THEBRAND. And last but not least, our newest sponsor, W Energy, where at wenergy.gg, you can use code ABON and save 10%. My name is Billy Nichols.
And my name is Chris Small.
Where the fuck can they follow you, though?
They can follow me at their local Denny's, paying $5 to fist fight any clown that comes near me. No. So they can follow me on Instagram at Chris Small Brand, on TikTok at Papa.Smallz with a Z at the end, because I am perpetually stuck in the 90s. I am here on Twitch at twitch.tv/Papa_Smalls. I'm also on Kick at kick.com/Papa-Smalls, because their underscore system does not work on the URL. Twitter at Chris Small Brand. On Instagram and TikTok as well. My vinyl series Pressed is at ABON Pressed, PRESSD, on both Instagram and TikTok. And my personal TikTok is the Papa.Smalls, which has nothing to do with any of this. It's just me being a purely unhinged chaos gremlin.
Yeah. All right, with that being said, if you're watching this, I love you as always. This has been an A Bunch of Nerds Media Group production. We're back again in 2 weeks on Wednesday, July the 26th. Might have a special guest lined up that I haven't announced yet, but we're going to be back with Stevie Oakes and Arif S. Kinchin from the Saints Row series, my good buddy Pierce. We're going to drink some Saints Flow. We're going to talk about the debacle that is going to be San Diego Comic-Con during a writer's strike, which is going to be tough. And it is going to be perpetual chaos, and you never know who might show up for that episode. So make sure to like this channel, comment, subscribe, follow our YouTubes, follow us everywhere. For fuck's sake, tell your grandmother to watch our show, because if they're not watching the Brand Show and they're watching Family Matters still in 2023, they are missing the point of what the internet is. Thank you all for your support. To our new friends over at I Sell Toys for Fun, to our friends at the Emporium of Retro and Interesting Collectibles merch bar, you name it, anybody who has been good to us, supported us, especially during this downtime we've had these last 6 months. Thank you for sharing in my journey with cancer, my road to remission. Thank you for helping us launch Unboxed and Press. Thank you for allowing us back into your homes on Wednesday nights. Thank you for being our community. I don't think you guys have any idea how much it means to Smallz and I, and to our team, and to the new guys that we've brought in. You know, we are building something special here at A Bunch of Nerds, and I am very proud of that. So, for now, be kind, rewind, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Actually, no, we'll see him next week for Brand Show Plays Fortnite.
Yeah.
We'll be back next Wednesday at 8 p.m. for the Brand Show Plays Fortnite. Small, save some money.
What?
Snacks. Oh, my God.
You're getting your S names all fucked up.
Oh, you see this guy? See this guy?
Number one bullshit guy.
He do the wee woo.
And on that note, I'm going to send you guys out with one last request.
I need photos. Photos of Spider-Man.
We'll see you next time. Later.
Peace.
Run free and dive into the sky. Hear the wind crying out its prayer. Why are we so ashamed to be alive? Break the chains and our freedom's ours to take. Look behind your back. Chase a light when the world is getting darker. I have a dream where love's the only side. So take my hand, join the army of the side.